All right, let's get a drive time. Wednesday afternoon, about 10 minutes past the hour of 2 o'clock. Beautiful day, gorgeous fall day, October Wednesday. About 70 degrees and sunny here in downtown Salt Lake City, Utah. And as it is every single day, it's good to have you along for the ride. Spence Checketts behind the mic. That's Porter Larson behind the glass producing the program today. Happy Wednesday to you. Halfway through that work week, one day closer to the weekend and one day closer to football. NFL, it's already week 6, man. Thursday night football that, of course, you can hear on our radio station after we say goodnight tomorrow. We'll feature the Eagles coming off their first loss of the season to the Broncos against Jackson Dart and the New York Giants at MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford. Unfortunately, a lot of injury news continues to kind of spill in. I don't even know who's going to play quarterback for the Niners this weekend. Brock Purdy did not participate in practice today, and Mac Jones was a limited participant in practice today. Joe Flacco is your new starting quarterback in Cincinnati. Jake Browning goes to the bench. Joe Burrow, of course, out for the majority of the season. So we'll keep you up to date and in the loop on all the pro football news that comes our way as we're on air today for the next 4 hours. Obviously, a big week on the station. Big week for the Utes, big week in the Big 12 overall. University of Utah back at it after a bye week against Arizona State. The line continues to be Utah minus 5.5. Opened up Utah minus 4.5, went up to the Utes, and it has remained there. We will preview that game today with a great guest list and get you ready for a big Saturday night at Rice-Eccles Stadium. 8:15 kick time. Pre-game coverage will begin at 4:15 with that guy, with Porter Larson and Trevor Riley, who is on the show today, among other guests that we'll tell you about in a moment. BYU hits the road for what can be a sneaky, tough road trip to take on Arizona. BYU a slight favorite. Brigham Young has passed every test that has been placed in front of them so far this year, and they're undefeated. Currently the number 18 team in the country, 5-0 for the second straight year. And I think the fourth time under Kalani, if I remember correctly, in his decade tenure down in Provo. So two really big games this weekend concerning local teams. Utah State will be headed to Hawaii for a late kick on Saturday night. Utah State coming off a bye last week. They've played, I would say, better than most expected. Year one under Bronco Mendenhall. Bryson Barnes was banged up a week ago, so hopefully he's good to go. Our former buddy down here. Quarterback for Utah State, who's played really well. So all three of our local teams in action, a bunch of big-time Big 12 games with massive conference implications that we'll get into on the program today. Bunch of really good national college football battles as well. We have the Red River rivalry, one of the best college football rivalries in the country, as Oklahoma and Texas are going to play at the Cotton Bowl in Dallas, so a neutral field battle where Texas is 3-2, but they're a slight favorite to beat Oklahoma, who is undefeated. John Mateer is questionable for that game. So we'll kind of get into some of the big picture college football storylines. Big one up in Autzen, Indiana, Oregon, two undefeated Big 10 teams. And in the landscape of the Big 12, a lot of big matchup. Kansas will take on Texas Tech. Iowa State, after their first loss, goes to Folsom Field in Boulder. So big weekend ahead in college football. We'll kind of dig into some of the storylines and get you ready for the Big 12 stuff, the local stuff, and then the national landscape as well. Chris Mannix, once upon a time, a member, I believe one of the original members of the NBA Daily Assist that I started, like 16 years ago. Different station, different place. We're about to bring back the NBA Daily Assist. Once we finalize our lineup, we'll let you know who you can expect to hear every day to talk Jazz and talk NBA. Chris Mannix reporting the Jazz are actively discussing trading Lauri Markkanen. He is not the first to report this, nor will he be the last. I have some thoughts on this. Well, you probably know my thoughts if you've listened to the NBA coverage we do. You should have traded him when his value was at the all-time high after making the All-Star team. This has just been a very clunky rebuild. But this is year one with Austin Ainge as your primary decision maker, so certainly leave some space for him to do a better job, quite frankly, than maybe even his dad did, who's one of the best NBA executives of all time. So some NBA storylines as we get ready for NBA basketball. The Jazz actually play tonight. There is a Jazz basketball game tonight. They are taking on the Houston Rockets. The Rockets revamped a little bit in the offseason, brought in Kevin Durant. I'm sure the Jazz don't really have any good players, but most of the good players won't play for either team. Look at the injury report, let you know who you can expect to see tonight as the Jazz begin their preseason journey before October 22nd when the season actually gets going, right around the corner. Utah Mammoth taking on Colorado tomorrow. We're going to talk some hockey on the show today. We're about to launch into more consistent hockey coverage on the program. And, of course, Major League Baseball playoffs rolling along. The Yankees have a pulse. Aaron Judge changing the narrative. 3-run home run last night helped the Yankees extend the series with the Blue Jays. But they are far from out of the woods. They got to win 2 more games if they want to advance. The Mariners lead the Tigers right now 2-0. If Seattle wins, they advance to play for the pennant. So we'll keep you up to date on that game and talk some Major League Baseball playoffs as well. Gut check time for RSL. Saturday night, Seattle, Lumen Field. It will be rainy. It will be cold. It will be dramatic because fall soccer is dramatic, and that is a very tough place to play and go get a result, but that's what RSL has to do. Without Diego Luna, without Brian Ojeda, without Xavier Gozo, and Seattle missing some players for international duty as well, but RSL back at it on Saturday after beating Colorado 1-0, or nil, if you'd like, soccer term. RSL on the right side of the playoff line as of now, but that could change if they do not get a result coming up on Saturday. So a lot going on. It's that time of year, one of the best times of the year if you're a sports fan where everything is kind of on the table. So it's kind of like, what do you not talk about instead of what do you actually hone in on? All right. What is on the television right now? What's this commercial? That guy has a mouth on his chest. What is this?
Whoa.
What is that?
Interesting.
This is trippy, dude. What is this for? That's like the weirdest commercial. Okay.
AT&T, huh?
They're not a sponsor.
Verizon.
He has like a mouth on his chest. That I looked up for a second.
It was disturbing, right?
What was in my Cheerios this morning? I did not have Cheerios.
Yeah, but that was something that'll distract you from your radio show.
That was weird. All right, Matt Brown will be our first guest right out of the gates. Porter and I are both snacking on an Uncrustable today. Because Matt, every day. And Matt wrote a piece on Uncrustable consumption in college football that I got a kick out of. We're not going to do 20 minutes on that. But I've got a lot I want to get to with Matt today. Really smart college football media member, editor of the newsletter Extra Points that we talk about on the show quite a bit. Trevor Riley, live in studio, former Ute, good friend of the show, good friend of mine. Excited to catch up with Trev today. Nick Olachek to talk some Utah Mammoth on the eve of the season opener, and then Stevenson Sylvester to preview the weekend ahead in college football. So we got Matt Brown, we got Trevor Riley, we got Nick Olachek, Stevenson Sylvester, me, Spence Checketts, all of you, the great listeners, and that guy, Uncrustable fan Porter Larson.
What up?
On a Wednesday afternoon. All right, how you feeling right now about this game, Saturday night, Rice Eccles, for Utah?
Good. I think for an unranked team, welcoming a ranked team to their house in October, considering the option still on the table for Big 12 play. This is what you play for, Spence. I'm not necessarily saying I'm overly confident Utah's going to come in here and thump a good Arizona State team, but I do like the matchup schematically, and I do think that this is one where the line going in Utah's favor is fair. And I do think that they should win this football game. But that still, doesn't answer some questions I have for them long-term with the Big 12. Like you've talked about, though, if you don't get past Arizona State, much of those conversations are a moot point because 2 losses on your schedule and 2 losses against 2 teams in Texas Tech and Arizona State that may be talking about things in November and later, those might knock you out of Big 12 contention. So, like you said, confident about this week, yes, but it is, if not a must-win game, it's as close to it as you get in early October.
Yeah, well said. I tend to agree, so let's get to it. Our first guest today will be Matt Brown. But before Matt stops by, courtesy of our good friends and your good friends at Prize Picks, it's time now for your opening tip.
Welcome to The Drive with Spence Checketts on Utah's #1 sports talk. Now into the studios of ESPN 700 to set the scene for the show. The opening tip of The Drive is brought to you by Prize Picks. Use the code ESPN 700 and run your game with Prize Picks.
Prize Picks is the best place to win cash on the Broncos, on the Raiders, on the Niners, whoever your favorite team is this football season. Pick which players are going off, which ones are overhyped. All you have to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. And if you're correct, you can win up to 2,000 times your cash. Prize Picks is the only app that offers stacks, meaning you can pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. If you want to pick more on Josh Allen's passing yards, rushing yards, and touchdowns, now you can pick all of them in the same lineup only on Prize Picks. Follow other Prize Picks players directly on the app and copy their lineups in one click. Whether it's a friend, a celebrity partner, or just someone whose picks you like, hit the follow button and check out every lineup they create in the new feed tab on Prize Picks. Step number 1 is go get their free money. If you haven't done it yet, you got to get that done. So download the Prize Picks app today. Use the promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups after you play that first $5 lineup. Promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup on Prize Picks. It is good to be right. DraftKings just moved the line for Utah, Arizona State. Utah on DraftKings is now favored by 6. Looks like on FanDuel it's still 5.5, but that just went down. So Utah football back at it coming up this weekend. It is a night game at Rice-Eccles Stadium against Arizona State at 8:15. Our pregame coverage on the station will begin at 4:15 with Porter Larson, Trevor Riley. Porter is producing the show today. Trevor will join us later. And as we've discussed all week and will continue to discuss all week, this is as close to a must-win as you're going to see without really leaning to that entirely. Now, Arizona State, good football team. Kenny Dillingham has long been thought of as a kind of head coach prospect, and now that he has his own job, he's done a really, really good job down at ASU. But I don't think they're as good as they were a year ago. At least that's been my takeaway through the course of watching them over the course of the first 5 games. Sam Leavitt, a year ago, was the second best quarterback in the conference when it comes to QBR. He's number 11 this season. Now, he can expedite some of those weaknesses with the throw game, with his ability to run. We've seen it. He's a vet with a lot of starts under his belt, and he is not necessarily one of these transfers that has come from a smaller school. He's been at ASU now for a while. So even though the environment at Rice-Eccles Stadium on a Saturday night for an 8:15 kick time can be very, very difficult to overcome for the opponent, I don't know that Sam is the type of quarterback you can count on to be compromised. Now, it will be loud, and it looks like it's going to be cold, and it looks like it's going to be rainy, so prepare for that. But as we've discussed, this Jordan Tyson kid is incredibly talented, but Sam has not settled on a secondary target. There's a little bit of tunnel vision with this relationship. Now, the great thing about having a receiver like Jordan Tyson is even though the opponents know that you're going to him, no one has been able to stop him up until this point. And we do know that where Utah, at least as of now, is a little bit compromised when it comes to their health is the defensive backfield, namely the safeties. So we'll see what Morgan dials up to kind of contain this kid because that's the number one threat they have. Raleek Brown, a former 5-star recruit out of high school who once upon a time was a USC Trojan, has taken over for Cam Scadaboo, as Cam is now a New York Giant, and he is a really good player, a very good running back who leads the Big 12 in rushing as of now. But Sam as a quarterback has not been as good as he was a year ago, despite what our friend Tim Healy had to say yesterday. And certainly when it comes to the landscape of the ability of Morgan Scalley to scheme up to stop a quarterback, he has shown that he has the ability to do it. So as we inch closer and closer to game day, I continue to feel very confident about the outcome of this game for the Utes. It's a little bit not in the same vein, but Texas and Oklahoma coming up this weekend, the Red River rivalry. Steve Sarkisian's team, if they lose, they're cooked. It is all over. You can forget about it. They've already lost 2 games, and they've lost their first conference game. You get to 3 losses and 0-2 in the SEC. There's nothing that you're going to be able to do the rest of the way to get yourself back in the picture. And even though Texas is coming off another loss, and they are 3-2 and Oklahoma is undefeated, Texas is a slight favorite to win this game. But they're going to have to play with tremendous desperation, and that's ultimately why I'm going to side with the Utes in this one. backs against the wall. There is really no coming back from this outside of, the chaos that took place a few years back when Utah needed like 7 tiebreakers to go their way to get into the Pac-12 championship game. Crazy things happen, certainly, but you don't want to leave the destiny in other people's hands. You want to control it yourselves. And Utah already has a conference loss. Of course, most people believe Texas Tech is the class of the Big 12 as of now. And I've said on the show, and I'll continue to maintain until something different happens, I think the best win any team in conference has is what Texas Tech did to Utah and Salt Lake. But for 3.5 quarters, that was a heavyweight fight. It was punch, counter punch, defensive battle. So Utah, to me, even though it was a loss, did show that if Tech is the class of the conference, Utah should be considered as a team that's right there. But you lose to Arizona State, and then in your back pocket, you have 2 conference losses to 2 teams that will be there at the end, and you don't have the tiebreaker over either of them. And, of course, next week is BYU week. It is rivalry week. It is time to talk about the Holy War. You cannot get distracted. You have to keep your eye on the prize. Win the day, control what you can right in front of you, guard your yard, whatever cliche you want to use. Utah football under a little bit of pressure to perform coming up on Saturday night against a really good team in conference. And excited for this one. BYU remains a slight favorite, traveling down to take on Noah Fafita in Arizona. We'll break that game down coming up with Trevor in a little bit, but we'll catch a break. And our first guest on a Wednesday afternoon will be our friend from Extra Points, Matt Brown. All right, we got Trevor Riley on the show today. Trevor will stop by live in studio, we think. You never know with Trev. Was it a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago, he was supposed to be in studio, and he literally flipped his car and had to get like an Uber here and was like 20 minutes late?
Yeah, he was about ready to do I think it was a 3 o'clock hit, and he sent me a text message at about 3:01. We were coming on air, and the photo that he sent me was him, and in the background was his car on its side on I-80. So to be clear, it wasn't his fault, that particular accident, but you just never know where Trevor Riley is. I think he's going to join us in studio, to be clear.
All right, well, we'll have to see. Nick Olachek stops by. The Utah Mammoth begin their season tomorrow. We'll do some NHL. Stevenson Sylvester later on. Seattle leads Detroit 3-0 in the ALDS. So a ton going on, but our first guest, one of my favorites to talk college football, our buddy Matt Brown from Extra Points on a Wednesday. Matt, happy Wednesday, man. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. I'm glad I'm walking today, so we don't have to worry about me being late or for flipping any cars. We'll try to keep things as easy as possible here.
Okay, there you go. Well, we appreciate the time. A couple things I want to get to. Porter and I are snacking on Uncrustables, so we'll talk Uncrustables a little bit later. But here's where I want to start. You know, you hear a lot about the potential of James Franklin losing his job, Billy Napier losing his job. Are the current economics in college football something that may motivate athletic directors and administrators to keep coaches around because of the massive buyouts, as opposed to maybe looking to get rid of them, if that makes sense?
And it's true, and that's part of the reason why Billy Napier is still at Florida right now instead of being fired last season, along with the fact that the Gators finished pretty well last year. Fan bases, athletic departments have a lot of money, but virtually nobody has completely unlimited money. And when you're in a situation like Penn State, where the buyouts after you just recently extended the guy is going to be north of $30-40 million, it's very difficult to go back to your donors and ask for that kind of money, especially when Penn State has a pretty high football payroll this year. When you actually have to do the fundraising and go and pay the actual players, it's complicated. Now, just because it's complicated doesn't mean that it's impossible. All right, we already had 3 P4 jobs open up already this year. I expect there to be at least one other FBS opening in the next 2 weeks, if not more than that. So if you have the right motivated donors, things can happen. But that is absolutely a calculus that schools are considering right now, especially because if you fire your coach in September or early October, all the people you want to hire are still coaching. So there may not necessarily be an incentive to do it now rather than in 5 or 6 weeks.
Do you think as a result that we will see changes to coaching contracts that don't include these massive buyouts? I mean, that's easy to say, but of course, when it comes to the dynamic of being a coach, you know that you're hired to be fired 90% of the time. So that would be something that you'll negotiate. But do you think we'll see institutions maybe be less willing to give these massive buyouts based on the current economic model?
I would say probably not, because the schools right now aren't the entities that have a whole lot of leverage. If there's a candidate that you really want and that your fan base really wants you to hire, they're going to ask for that kind of buyout language. And if you don't give it to them, chances are they're currently at an existing job where they have it. And that's the sort of thing that can torpedo a potential hire. I will say that one place where I do think we're going to see some downward salary pressure we're beginning to see it now, but I think you're going to really see that's more coming into this particular coaching cycle, is going to be the salaries of assistant coaches and coordinators and GMs and support personnel not growing at the same clip that everywhere else is. I mean, the Berkowitz at the USA Today, posted the database today, I think, where it shows we've got, a dozen people making over $10 million right now as head coaches, and coordinators are often making more than $2 million. That wasn't the case even 6 years ago. And in a world where schools have to pay $20.4 million at least to the players and some of this other supporting personnel, I think the era where a guy like Michael Lombardi makes $1.5 million to be a GM and sucks, I think that era is going to end right after it started. And people that were making a lot more money are going to be making a little bit less money. Maybe not the head coach, but a lot of other people in the industrial complex.
Private equity is something that we've discussed on this show often. I had a meeting with a very powerful booster here in Salt Lake a few years ago who predicted that it is an inevitability that private equity would make its way into college football. Depending on who you talk to, some people still believe that will happen. Other people believe that there are too many complications with public institutions. But news did come down that the Big Ten is kicking the tires on it. It looks like there will be some things people are trying to put in place to stop this train. But is it too far down the tracks? Are we high speed ahead, Matt, to private equity really reaching into the conferences and teams in college football?
It's interesting. Every major conference and a lot of mid-major conferences have taken these exact meetings over the last 12 months. I remember when I was in Atlanta for the college football national championship last year, and there were private equity groups meeting with commissioners then. And the talk in Atlanta was, hey, the Big 12 and the American Athletic are on the 5-yard line to announcing some of these deals. And then they didn't happen. I think a little bit unusual that as much information about the Big Ten has become public, which I think is probably happening because some staffers within the Big Ten office are trying to leverage and push Ohio State and Michigan and a few other schools to approve this. I am coming around to the idea that private capital, which can be different than private equity, is going to make its presence in college football in a significant way pretty soon in the next year or two. But I don't necessarily think it has to be at the conference offices, right? A lot of folks in the Big Sky and a bunch of other FCS leaders were in Chicago about 2 weeks ago and heard a pitch from private equity and private capital for potentially a significant investment in the FCS playoffs, which most people in college sports agree is an under-monetized asset. I definitely think it's more likely we'll see something like that or with real estate investments with a particular school than it is more likely for at the conference level, especially somewhere in the Big Ten, where if you're Ohio State or Michigan or Nebraska, you still have so many other options to raise capital that are not going to be as expensive as working with a private institutional investor, which makes these kind of deals just less attractive. If you're UCLA and Rutgers and you're in debt up to your eyeballs already, I get it. But not everybody in the Big Ten is in that situation.
What are the complications? So we'll use our two local schools that we cover the most here. BYU private institution, Utah public institution. So it would be a lot more complicated for Utah to be able to cultivate a deal like this based off of just the dynamic of them having more red tape, being, a public institution. I don't know how else to put that. So what would be the complications and what are the differences between what BYU could do and what Utah would kind of have to figure out?
So I think we probably have to be honest here when we're talking about BYU specifically. There's going to be hang-ups and obstacles that are going to be different from any other private school. I don't think I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, but debt is not something the LDS Church does all that much.
That is correct.
When it comes to building big things, and I would be blown away if that was something that church officials would be okay with here in an athletics complex. If they need cash, there are ways for them to get cash. But for a public school, part of the challenge, right, if you're Utah and you're trying to raise capital for changing something to Rice Eccles or to hiring a bunch of new staff or doing something else, right, you could borrow money from a bank. You could sell a bond. You could lobby for some kind of state appropriation, which sometimes happens in Utah and other places throughout the Intermountain West. You've got the credit rating from the university itself where you can borrow money. And all of these things do not require you to give up equity or control. You might have to pay back that money over a period of time. But the folks that are running the athletic department are still making those decisions. Theoretically, if you enter into some kind of arrangement where a private equity group comes in, you might not really be, not technically selling 30% of Utah Utes athletics, but you might say, I'm going to park all of my future athletic revenue, my ESPN television money, my Fox television money, my ticket sales, my corporate sponsorships, my video game money. I want to put all this into this new company, and I'm going to sell a stake of that new company to this other investor. Well, if revenues don't go up, you lose control of that future revenue, and the other people that are buying a stake are typically going to want some semblance of control. and say over what you do with that money. And it's a risk that is talked about a lot is that institutional investor might come in there and say, hey, you know what's not actually financially efficient? Red Rocks gymnastics. You know what's not financially efficient? Baseball in the Intermountain West. Get rid of that stuff. And focus here on the bottom line. That might be good for money, but that would be not something that I think a lot of Utah fans or Utah community members would like. So those are all things that have to be considered. For a private school, yeah, you don't have the same stakeholders. You can move faster. But a lot of private schools and FBS are religious institutions that if not the LDS situation necessarily, but you're going to have to convince some like Methodist bishops or the Catholic Church to get on board with some of this stuff. That's not always easy to do either.
Would it be a model that BYU would even need to look at, Matt? You know what I mean? Like they might be in a unique spot this way.
I can't imagine it. And this is, again, not something I'm saying to be pejorative or to take a shot at anyone, but like cash assets are not the problem of the LDS Church.
Correct.
Or anybody that's bankrolling BYU. It's a matter of will, and it's a matter of like, is this the best stewardship of these particular resources? If it was really important, and somebody could theoretically divert resources from the mission presidency in Guatemala or whatever, come up with the cash and build whatever they have to build. There's very good reasons why they don't do that, but like that money exists. That's not the case for Baylor. That's not the case here in my neck of the woods in Illinois or where I grew up in Ohio for a lot of private schools there. Like Oberlin can't do that. Oberlin would have to go get some kind of institutional investor. That's not where BYU's problem is right now.
All right, moving over here, I kind of chuckle picturing these senators like sitting around coming up with like really super sick names for the bills that they're proposing.
Oh,
and
yeah.
You and I have discussed the SCORE Act in the past. Well, now we have the SAFE Act, Matt. What should our listeners know about this dynamic?
Well, so the TLDR here is that SAFE is proposed by 3 Democratic senators. So they don't control the Senate or the House, and they have no capacity to bring this thing for a vote without anyone's help. But what's different is that there's a weird kind of, almost bipartisan or kind of heterodox coalition going on right now in both Congress and the Senate about a lot of college sports issues, where there are some conservatives that are looking at some of the SAFE ideas and saying some of these have some validity. The most famous name that I think people in this footprint, I'm sure have heard of at this point, is Cody Campbell, who's not an office holder, but he's a billionaire, so he gets to buy ads on your television. He's tight with Trump. He's tight with a lot of federal lawmakers, and he chairs the Board of Regents at Texas Tech. And he is signed on to a lot of what SAFE is promoting. The SAFE does not take a position on antitrust exemptions or on athlete employment status, but it would allow every single league to sell their broadcast rights collectively as opposed to individually, which is right now you can't do it without running afoul of antitrust law. And if you're a fan of the Big 12, that's probably great news because you'll make a lot more money if you could package your broadcast rights with the SEC than you can by selling it yourself.
Matt, I don't know that you've noticed, but it doesn't feel like our friends in Washington are able to agree on very much as of late. I'm not sure if you paid attention to the news cycle. Will either of these proposed bills pass? Like, how is this going to play out? I know I'm asking you to read the future.
Yeah, as both SAFE or SCORE are currently written, it's very unlikely either of them pass both houses. SCORE it looked like it was going to pass the House until it lost a handful of Republican votes. It might come up for a vote later this month. But there is a bipartisan majority, if not a supermajority, in both houses to do something. So I think it is legitimately possible to thread a needle with most of the ideas from the Republican SCORE Act and a couple of suggestions from the Democratic SAFE Act to find a way to get something through, given that the president wants it and an important committee chairman of both groups, of both the House and the Senate want it. That being said, federal government's closed right now, man. And I'm in Chicago. You guys have probably seen the news. There's a lot of pretty crazy things happening here right now. There's a lot of other stuff on people's minds. So even if Cruz and Cantwell can sit down together and say we have the bones of a college sports bill, all it takes is one ice action or one, somebody on Fox News saying one thing to blow the whole thing up. So it's definitely on precarious ground.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. God bless America. God bless us all. God save us all, Matt.
You and me both, man.
You referenced Cody Campbell. I wasn't going to ask you about this, but since you brought up his name, Tech rolled into town, Matt, and I'll tell you what, like that talent popped. It looked really, really good. They have rebuilt the trenches.
Really, that game did not go the way I expected, for sure.
No, it didn't. It was a little bit of a rock fight for about 3 quarters, and then, ironically enough, it was Tech's backup quarterback, an LDS kid, rolled into the game and just dissected Utah's secondary, which doesn't happen very much. And look, I know there are regulations that are either in place now or will be put into place to maybe regulate the spending in a way that they were not in place when Cody Campbell and his rich friends decided to infuse this program with so many funds. But is it proof of concept now that if you do not have the economic ability to infuse your program with money to bring in talent, that you're just not going to be able to keep up with the teams like Texas Tech? They're talented, man. It's a good team.
It's a good team, and what I think is really impressive about what Texas Tech did in the portal and how they're constructed is I think they spent their money differently from a lot of other schools. The typical conventional wisdom is go drop $2 million on a flashy quarterback, go get yourself some skill position players, because there's usually not enough high-level guys along the line of scrimmage to make a difference. And what Tech did is they spent a lot of money, and they mostly didn't do it at offensive skill positions. Like I don't think that Texas Tech has a top 3 quarterback or wide receiver room in the conference. It doesn't matter if you have an absolutely nasty defensive line and can beat people the way that Utah did for the better part of a half decade. And it looks like all of those have hit. What I think is important here is there's going to be a lot of teams every year that are going to spend a lot of money, both in roster retention and in talent acquisition. And for every Texas Tech, we also still have examples of last year's Florida State, which probably had a top 10 payroll and was barely an FCS caliber team. This year, I've been telling folks, we're going to have multiple playoff teams whose total football payroll is going to be under $20 million. And there's a good chance that Texas, who is going to have a top 3 payroll, could very well miss the playoff. Penn State has a top 6 payroll. They very well may miss the playoffs if they don't beat Ohio State now. So I don't think you necessarily have to be spending in the upper 20s to be a playoff team. But just like it is with Major League Baseball, just like it is with anything else, money can help paper over poor decisions. If you don't have as much money, then you have to nail your development, nail your evaluation, and you don't get the ability to just go grab a guy if you misevaluate somewhere. If you can spend $28 million, you can afford to screw up a couple of times and buy your way out of it, and that's kind of where Tech is right now.
You wrote recently on operating expenses and budgets for football programs. It was 2024, so a year ago, and obviously, as you point out, you can't FOIA private schools, so my guess is BYU is not on this list, or you were not able to get that information. But I wonder if you were able to uncover the information about Utah.
I have it. I got to be honest. It's that I don't have it in front of me right now because I'm about to walk into my kid's school for Latino Heritage Night. But I do remember from FOIAing those expenses, and there's a story on Extra Points where we broke this down for virtually every single public Division I school in both FBS and FCS. For operating expenses. And operating expenses are not what you spend on talent. They're what you spend on coaching. They're what you spend on nutrition and software and support services, debt on your facilities, all of these other things. It's not going to really surprise you that nationally the top 20 is overwhelmingly schools in the Big Ten and the SEC. Yep. And within the Big 12, there really aren't massive gaps. Between somebody who's in the top 3 in spending and somebody who's in the bottom 3 in the league, and honestly, I think if you threw BYU and Baylor in there, I think that would be true. I don't think either of those two are spending a crazy amounts of money on the other stuff, which both creates opportunities. Nobody's priced out of success in this league operationally, but also some challenges with parity, which makes it harder to get 3 teams in the playoff.
All right. Of course, we're now in the Big 12 footprint in Salt Lake. Of course, the Pac-12 footprint is really, well, it's still a thing, but we're not part of it, and it's a much different thing. But I wanted to kick the tires with you on something you wrote about concerning Brett Yormark's decision and the Big 12's decision to take this conference internationally. Iowa State, K-State, the Aer Lingus College Football Classic in Dublin. And, it was not a great TV product. The field didn't look great. I don't know that the fans were all that into it. It reminded me, Matt, back in 2005, we brought Real Madrid to Utah to play Real Salt Lake. And we were playing at Rice-Eccles Stadium. And when we got the list of the things that Real Madrid needed us to do for them to come over here, we were like, we're not going to be able to do this. There's no way we can pull this off. Like, we had to put grass over the turf, and that's one of 50 things they needed. And it was a miracle that we pulled it off. I don't know that soccer will ever resonate here the way that it does overseas, and there's several reasons for that. We don't need to talk soccer today. But I don't know that football is ever really going to resonate over there the way that it does here. But what do you make of what Brett Yormark is trying to do with this game in Dublin? And now we've got a game in London coming up next year.
And they'd like to do games in other places, too. You have a women's basketball game in Paris. The league had a lot of conversations about trying to do multiple events in Mexico, and that didn't work out, but they haven't given up on it. I honestly think it is a good idea, even though everything that you just explained there is true. Is college football ever going to be as popular in London or Dublin or Germany as it is in the United States? Almost certainly not. But there are a lot of professional football fans all over the world. I think a lot of people here in this market listening who spent some time in some of these countries know the NFL is really, really popular in Mexico. There are millions of NFL fans in Brazil. There's a reason the NFL is continuously playing games there, and it's not just because they're trying to get around the Sports Broadcast Act. We have a tradition of American football in lots of parts of Europe, not just in areas where we've had U.S. military bases for a while, but we used to have a developmental league there. And there's a lot of similarities to rugby and other sports that are played. You need, in order to kind of build an audience, you need to do more than just play games once a year or occasionally in that environment. You also need to make sure that people can watch and keep up with those games on a regular basis after the fact. And that's been one of the biggest challenges for college sports and trying to grow internationally. You can't just fire up ESPN Plus if you're in France unless you have a VPN. Your access to American cable television is region locked. This is the first year when ESPN has entered into a sub-licensing agreement with DAZN for college football and college basketball in Europe and in the Middle East. My understanding last time I talked to the Big 12 League office is that the ESPN and Fox are trying to do something similar in Central and South America as well. Right now, you don't have one of those. But if you're able to secure those partnerships and you play a game or two, once a year, what Yarmark's trying to do, and he told me this in the story, is that they want to be able to sell international broadcast rights to make money, just like the EPL does, just like La Liga does. And if you don't have the population, if you don't have the institutional history or some of the advantages of the Big Ten and the SEC, but you beat them to Europe and you beat them to South America, you can make up some of those financial differences. And quite frankly, I think the Big 12 is in a position to potentially do that, especially with BYU and Utah and Houston and many schools that have Latino student bodies and alumni bases of over 20%. So I get that it's going to be weird football. I get that people don't love losing a home game. They don't love the jet lag that comes with this. They are planting seeds that will not grow next year, but could grow in 5 to 10 years.
All right, Matt, before I set you loose, I always enjoy our time together because it feels like I'm sitting back and taking a class. But I reached out to my producer as a result of the hard-hitting reporting you've done about Uncrustables. Now, we are Uncrustable fans here at the station. Porter and I both have one to eat today. How many Uncrustables does it take to run a Big Ten football program?
Honestly, less than I thought. I was trying to do a story where to try to determine what are the actual most popular snacks across Division I football and men's basketball programs. I sent out like 20 of these open records requests, but most schools don't itemize what they're actually spending money on. Indiana was the one exception, and they broke it down and were like, okay, we bought like 200 boxes of Uncrustables for our football team, and also here's what we spent on Rice Krispie treats and beef sticks and apple juice. Apple juice was the thing that I was a little bit surprised by because I don't typically see that in like snack stations when I go to schools. But I guess it's a big thing in Indiana. It's pretty obvious that not everybody on the team is part of the Uncrustables lifestyle, but to be able to polish off roughly 2 Costco pallets of the stuff over the course of the season, not bad. Feeding a football team is a lot of money. There's no way around it. These guys need 4,000 plus calories a day.
We've come a long way from trying to debate whether or not a bagel is a snack or dinner, and if you add peanut butter or cream cheese to the bagel, it becomes a dinner. What a weird sport. All right, where can people go get your work, Matt?
You bet. You can find everything at extrapointsmb.com. That is where you can find the exact number of Uncrustables, which I did not have handy off the top of my head, or the apple juice cases. You also have a story coming out tomorrow about the Saudi Arabian Sovereign Wealth Fund buying EA and what that might do for the future of college sports video games, some other financial reporting. You can find it all at extrapointsmb.com.
Matt, thank you, sir. Enjoy your child's school night, and we'll get you back on soon.
Okay, sounds good, fellas. Appreciate you guys.
All right, Matt Brown, Extra Points. Did you hear what he said before he got off? Thanks, fellas. Come on, Matt.
Again.
Come on, dude. You've been on with me for years. Have we landed on they're just saying bye to both you and I?
For the multiple people who run the radio show, yes.
Okay, fine.
And you're just wanting the affirmation.
Well, Matt should know my name at this point. Is Trevor here? Has Trevor made it?
Yeah. Yeah, Trevor's here.
Trevor's here.
He's ready to go.
Holy smokes. We'll catch a break. Trevor Riley joins us coming up live in studio. As I often say when Trevor Riley is live in studio, the off-air conversation is far more entertaining than anything we talk about on air.
Yeah.
How are you, Trev?
Well, I'm on the 15 today, coming into the station, and all of a sudden, my tire is going faster than my car. That happens. So I was, stuck on the road for a couple hours, but I'm here, and life's good.
Well, you made it in studio, so we appreciate it. Have you ever thought about writing like a movie script about your existence? We could get you a ghostwriter. I could get the movie made. I've got connections.
I guess people brought it up. A lot of crazy stuff's happened to me in these 37 years. For whatever reason, a lot of crazy stuff happens. I take risk, and I do some wild stuff, but I mean, not really anymore. Just wild things have been happening, dude. I've been in 3 accidents in the last year. What's that about?
Yeah, that sounds just like bad luck. I'm not sure that just sounds like maybe one of those scenarios where you're just running into some bad luck.
Law of averages. I had a good run for a while. It's just coming through now. But life is exciting when you take chances, Spence, and you say yes to things.
Yep.
Weird and cool stuff happens.
I'm with you, and I've always just been fascinated by just whatever's happening in your life day to day. Now, we're going to talk football. We're going to talk college football. We'll see what's going on with you right now. But it just feels like never a dull moment with Trevor Riley. Is that fair to say?
You could say that. I take on a lot of stuff. I try to squeeze every minute out of every hour and do something productive. And I got a couple families I'm working on right now. So just a lot of stuff. And, yeah, the Utes are here, and I got the Islanders. And it's fun. I'm not complaining. Life's good.
Trevor Riley, former Ute. Longtime NFL players live in studio. I haven't talked to you since Texas Tech. We got to start there. So, Cody Campbell, as the story goes, oil tycoon, rich dude who played at Tech. He was an offensive lineman for Mike Leach. The Athletic did a really good in-depth piece. I was kind of curious to learn more about him, learn more about this process. And anecdotally, the summary is he was watching Tech and realized we've got great quarterbacks. We have good skill position players. We have high-powered offensive attacks. We are getting stomped in the trenches.
Yep.
So we are spending millions of dollars to rebuild our offensive and defensive line. I still believe Utah's offensive line is really, really good. But, Trev, they could not keep those DNs out of the backfield. And the Tech talent popped. It just did. It popped last week against Houston. Tell me what you saw there. And are we just now in a place where you simply have to keep up economically?
There was one play in that game when the quarterback got hurt, okay? And that wasn't the play. It was the next play or whenever they threw the next pass, and the backup was in. And the backup's better than the starter. And I said, oh, my goodness, we're in for a long one. And you scale that to what they've done depth-wise. They have depth, man.
Yep.
They got some guys on the bench coming off who can ball. And when you look at what they've done, is just what you said. They've spent money on speed and length. Their ends aren't that heavy. They're fast.
They're
long.
athletes.
They're
bro.
athletes.
Yeah.
And wouldn't it be every coach's dream to go out and get speed and length? That when you have these meetings in recruiting, that's what you're looking for. You're not looking for tough guys necessarily. You're looking for guys who can run and have length. And Texas Tech has a bunch of that, and it's expensive. Today, Stanford gets $50 million, from a ghost donor. There's an article in USA Today about, wait a minute, how is Colorado paying for a $100 million budget? No one's written anything down. Where's the money? All these stories are starting to come through, and what's happening is that if you have money, I heard it on the TV the other day, if you look at the teams who are spending the most money, sans maybe 2 or 3 teams, the top 25, they're doing well. And it's starting to shake out like baseball. And you know what I'm talking about, where the bottom stays on the bottom and the top, the rich. Yankees and Dodgers get rich, and the Oakland A's go to Vegas.
Yep. Yeah, and the difficulty is, it doesn't just come down to whether or not you have money. It's also how you spend it, because to your point, Texas and Penn State were the number 1 and 2 teams to start the season. They're both out of the top 25.
Yep.
But you're a Utah alum. You do a lot with the Utah Alum Association with the former players. And look, I've got to be careful what I say, because I don't want the athletic department to call me and get mad at me about things. Because I have been told things that indicate that we have a long way to go before we're even at where BYU is at. But I know that pisses the guys up on the hill off when I say. So what's your understanding of where Utah football and Utah athletics is economically right now?
Well, we start with our record. We're in good shape. Okay, we basically control our destiny. The way I look at it is if we went out, we're in.
Mm-hmm.
If we go one loss, I think we're still going to get into this playoff. And so that's one thing. That means that if you look at it from the outside, not too bad, right? Hey, were we 4-1?
4-1.
4-1.
Yep.
We got Arizona State at home. It's really a 2-game season to me. So let's look at that and say, well, if you look at it the way we're doing it, we're putting draft picks out. We got guys. We're spending some money. The issue we have is the same issue we had before we got in the Pac-12, Pac-10. Mm-hmm. We don't have depth. I know that sounds crazy. So, well, it's relative to what you're trying to be. Mm-hmm. We need to be too deep. We got to be too deep all the way across. And if you got guys playing both ways, that's usually not the case. I mean, you might have 1 or 2 guys that can do that, but we got 4 or 5 because we don't have the depth, not because we can't get it, because we don't have the money. We can't afford it. I mean, those 2 tackles, I think, are costing us close to $3 million. You throw in the end, right? Fano, that's another $500,000. So you're talking about basically $3 to $4 million for 3 or 4 guys who don't touch the ball. Someone said, why are we spending money? Well, what are you going to do, let them walk? You let them walk? And so it becomes this conundrum where from top to bottom, what's the plan? Who's funding it? Those are the 2 questions I want. Anyone asking, they seem obvious, but really think about that. What is our fiscal plan going forward? Are we buyers or sellers? Who's paying for it? And is it coming every year? I think Mark and his staff are trying to put that together. But as we're seeing, and I've said it before, this isn't a slight on Mark or anyone over there. You're letting gym coaches and non-active lawyers run a hedge fund. And that's how I see this thing, is that if you're going to win, you got to get organized. $50 million from Stanford, Texas Christian,
Kansas
Tech.
Kansas just got a big check.
They're all, but those 3 Texas schools, mm-hmm. Texas Christian, the first playoff they got in, right? The final. Where the heck did they come from? Last year Texas gets in, and it looks like Tech's going to make a run. And what we're seeing is oil money. Oil money's making moves, and now here the Saudis are buying EA Sports, and where's this money coming from all these schools? My question to you, Spence, is as a guy who's covered the sport for years, do you see parity coming, or do you see a continuance of the rich get richer and the poor get poorer?
Well, it's interesting because Lane Kiffin actually last week just alluded to what you said about Utah, and he was talking about like powerful SEC schools. He said, look, the days of the dynasties are done. And his point was, and look, your point about Utah, I want to dig into it in a moment, but he was talking about like Bama and Georgia and SEC schools where once upon a time, Saban was like, oh, wait, my DN got hurt. It's fine. I've got 3 5-stars behind him.
Loaded up, dude.
And now those 3 5-stars aren't going to sit behind the starter because they're going to go take a $2 million check and transfer to Ole Miss.
Yep.
So the issues you're discussing with Utah, and it's interesting you say that we don't have the depth that we used to, because I honestly did not really feel like that was an issue for Witt anymore. It felt like we had built up depth, and that's why we were going to Rose Bowls and winning the Pac-12. But whether it's Utah or Bama or Georgia, you are not able to keep the cupboard full because a 5 or 4-star recruit that's sitting behind another 5 or 4-star recruit gets a phone call from Ryan Day and says, oh, do you want to play at Ohio State? I've got a $4 million check for you. And they're gone.
Yep.
So...
Or BYU.
Or BYU, yes. I mean, look, I've been, my former producer, Brady, shout out Brady, COVID casualty, not dead, just lost his job. Shout out Brady. Every time I say COVID casualty, I feel like I'm alluding to him dying. He didn't die. We decided to let him go. He sent me on social media, and I had forgotten I said this, 5 years ago, this show is now just over 6 years old. 5 years ago, when I started reading the tea leaves and realized that NIL was about to become real, I said on this show, if you're a BYU fan, this is great news.
Absolutely.
This will even the playing field for you. The LDS Church understands the power of the purse. That business school every year sees 4 or 5 Utah County bros start businesses, some below board, some above board, but all of them seem to be very profitable.
Yeah.
And they care about BYU athletics. And what have we seen? All the Utah County Tech bros, they love BYU football, love BYU basketball. They put their hats on backwards, wear their joggers and their Jordans, and go down to the AD, and they write their check. And that's what we're seeing at BYU. So I have legitimate concern as to whether or not Utah will be able to keep up with this trend.
I just think eventually it's going to be private hedge fund money. I alluded to the Saudis, right? Not because the Saudis are going to buy everybody, but they might. Shoot, they bought golf. Gosh dang it, they bought golf.
They bought golf.
I didn't even know that was the thing. They bought golf, right? They bought women's tennis.
Got their tentacles in soccer, in F1,
Yeah,
all of it.
So I see and the conversations that I've had with both athletic department people and with football coaches and with alumni, we need to get organized and get ready for private equity. I'd like to see the players, ex-players, really own the team. I know that sounds a little bit weird, but not financially necessarily, but the players ain't going nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
The ex-players ain't going nowhere. Coaches and administrators, they come and go. Who's really in control of the team? Is it donors? Yeah, of course it's donors. Is it the school itself? I guess. But then you start thinking, who really runs the team? It's the players, man. The players are who the fans want to see. That's why we're having Nate Orchard in the Hall of Fame, Ron McBride. This is what, we're running an organization here. So what's coming is either two things, in my opinion. You're going to have complete parity with a salary cap where the feds are going to step in. They're going to, try to put I heard today the NCAA, Sean said on his show, the NCAA has a tip line now. You can call in and snitch on each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like what?
That just started, yeah.
So that's the thing, but you can see where this is going. It's completely disorganized, and I say this always. It's run by guys who ran AAU basketball. They're in charge right now of what goes on, and they're the kingmakers.
I hate that I'm about to say this because it might be the 10,000th time I've said this into this microphone. There is so clearly only one avenue, and it's the only avenue that will save this thing from really jumping the shark. Because to answer your question, until there's regulation, we will not see the parity that people are preaching, but it will be different teams that rise to the top, and the teams that rise to the top are simply the teams that have the most money.
Yep.
That's all. So if Bama has their collective in line to where it needs to be, Bama will still be Bama. If they don't, they're going to come back down to regression to the mean. Saban left because he saw this, okay?
Yep.
He could not do the Saban thing anymore. You can't stockpile 5 stars like Saban used to. Oh, my quarterback's hurt? One year he had Jalen Hurts and Tua, right? There's no way you do that now because Tua's like, oh, you're starting Jalen? Okay, I'm going to Florida. Bye.
No doubt.
Like, you can't do what Saban did anymore. The only avenue to solving this, the only solution, there's one solution, there's one path, and that is the players unionize, they collectively bargain with a governing body that's in charge of the sport, and they come to an agreement where a salary cap is in place, and you cap spending. You have to cap spending. Otherwise, Cody Campbell will be like, wait, there are no rules? I've got $1 billion in my bank account. Let's go buy a lineman.
$30 million, man, that ain't no thing.
So look, and I always get pushback to this where it's like, oh, there's red tape with public institutions. Powerful lawyers would love to take this on, and they could figure it out. We've seen it in pro basketball. We've seen it in pro football. We've seen it in pro baseball. We've seen it on the professional level, and it's time to say out loud that amateurism is dead, and college football essentially is a professional sport that has to move into a professional model. It just has to.
And I agree 100% with that. And high school is becoming professionalized. In Utah alone, okay, if I'm not mistaken, BYU's hoarded a few players over here. They stashed them. You don't think there's some, they're taking care of these people. And not just BYU, a lot of schools are. Why not get ahead of it, dude? If you can get a 17-year-old, why not? Why wouldn't you get him or pay him? Put him on salary, stick him in a high school that's nearby. And so it's already scaling down, dude. And where we see this, and this, is in Europe. Okay? This model is in the European soccer model, as we call it, European basketball model, but this model already exists. Now, I will say this, though. If they can get that salary cap in, how do you cap private spending? That's the one issue that you're going to have if you try to create a cap, is how do you stop guys from getting paid from boosters? Now you're back into the same old game we were in 20 years ago, you know what I'm saying, where you're hiding bags of cash or something. I don't know, or is it something you shouldn't worry about? That's the one thing as I think about this. If you do have a cap, what's going to stop somebody from just saying, okay, well, I'm just going to sponsor you to come to my car dealership. Here's $1 million or something.
That's where the NIL initiatives have to have guidelines as well. But you just alluded to a point that has to be underscored. No matter what rules are in place, shady people will find a way to circumvent them.
Yeah,
they just will.
You're dealing with I can't say this enough. These are AAU basketball. You watch the documentaries. Go read this. Now they're running football. These are middlemen. These are sharks. These are snakes. And so when you think about kids, right, you're talking about 17 to 23-year-old children that are being run now, like, not to be crass, but almost being pimped out in some ways. And they're, we'll transfer here, transfer there, forget your credits. And we're getting to a point now, Spence, where school is becoming almost how do you finish if you transfer? You're going to be at school for 5-6 years, dude, to get a bachelor's. Those credits don't transfer all the time. I seen a kid lose a year and a half of school transferring in. And that happens.
At
more
Utah?
At Colorado.
Colorado,
We brought him
yeah.
into Colorado.
Yeah.
It was an engineering degree, and all of a sudden he's like, well, I can't do that anymore. So and that story's told all over the place. And to wrap this thing up, as we're talking about this, just to put a bow on what I'm trying to really say here is if you're not organized and you don't have money, you're going to lose. And that's just a simple equation. There's no more backyard digging it where, hey, we're just going to go out there with some guys and out-tough everybody. This is pro football. That doesn't work. The Jets are still losing. The toughest team in the league every year, they still lose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the other dynamic you'll run into that I don't think there's ever any way to fully eliminate this is you have a lot of these athletes, and you coached a lot of these athletes at Jackson, then Colorado, where, like the spot where Mike Vick and Allen Iverson grew up, Newport News, Virginia, Bad News, Virginia is what they call it. If you watch the documentary on either Vick or Iverson and you see where they grew up, you're like, dude, this feels like a war zone.
Yeah, it's pretty bad, man.
And so with a lot of these young kids growing up in impoverished communities, there are going to be hangers-on around them, uncles, friends of the family, even fathers, that see a cash cow, that they see a ticket out. And then suddenly it's like, no, I've got your back. Marcus Dupree. You remember that?
Yeah.
You remember that story about Marcus Dupree, how his quote-unquote pastor was like, I've got you, and then basically took all of his money? So
I've been to Marcus Dupree's car dealership.
Have you really?
Philadelphia, Mississippi.
And I didn't know really about that story until the doc came out. And this shady man of God, I'm using air quotes, said, I got your back, and took all of his money to build his church.
Yeah.
So you're going to, like, this young kid, Ace Bailey, who's playing for the Jazz, his manager, again, more air quotes, was a guy named Omar Cooper, who couldn't count to 20 with his shoes on, and nearly botched the whole pre-draft process for the poor kid. Then Ace is getting criticized, and it was never Ace's fault.
No, it's the handler, man.
It was this faulty agent who didn't even have accreditation, was just trying to put his hand in the pie so he could get paid.
Yep.
So when it comes to the college football landscape, you talked about high school players. If you're a father of a dynamic freshman who's 14 years old and you are living in the projects and you can barely make rent and barely put food on the table, and a college coach calls you and says, I'm going to Venmo you $20K, there's none of them are going to say no, Trevor.
No, they're not.
All of them are going to say yes, and there really is not any way to eliminate things like that happening. But that's always kind of been the case, right? Like, I played AAU basketball with a kid named Roshmel Jones. Rosh played at UConn. He played overseas. He was a pro, won a national championship. And the stories he would tell about bags of cash.
Yeah, man.
And Rosh grew up in a poor part of Norwalk, Connecticut, went to a really good high school basketball school. But his family, I used to pick him up and take him to practice. He didn't have a car. And when I would drop him off or pick him up, you're kind of feeling like, should I be in this place as a white kid from
doubt.
Decatur? Like, I probably
No
am
doubt,
not safe
dude.
here. But every time a coach, and I'm talking about some of the heaviest hitters in college basketball coaching back then. I'm not saying names into a microphone because that's my guy. But he would talk about how they'd be asked to go to dinner, and then under the table, $10,000 in a bag is slipped to his dad. And like, so that stuff has always happened.
Scale it.
You're never going to be able to eliminate all of that. But when it comes to what is, quote, above board, the sooner we can get regulations in place, the sooner this frivolous spending by the Cody Campbells of the world will not be allowed. And that's what's going to allow parity. But until then, Trevor, Porter, please remind Trevor what the golden rule is here on The Drive. We follow the golden rule.
Oh, he knows the rule.
Please remind him.
Man with the gold makes the rules.
The man with the gold makes the rules. So until there's regulation, the biggest spenders will dominate the sport, period.
And you look at what these schools are doing. Some schools are backing the Wild Wild West, right? Some schools are fighting. Hey, what is this? And so you have this weird thing going on where it's like, if I'm a kid, I'm going to chase probably the highest bag along with a good coaching, good program, but the highest bag is going to be in there. But then there's this other thing. You talked about the southern schools. Why would you want to go live in Tuscaloosa when you can live in Miami?
Mm-hmm.
Or Los Angeles.
Well, why do you think LeBron left Cleveland, Trev? Everyone overthought that. Like,
it's easy, man. It was easy.
I'll tell you why. Okay, LeBron was born in Akron. He grew up in Northeast Ohio. He didn't go to college. He was drafted by the Cavs. So I guarantee when he was 18 and landed in Miami, he went, wait, what? This exists?
I'm coming.
I've spent my whole life in Cleveland. People live like, everyone's like, oh, he wanted to play with Dwayne Wade, the allure of like, no, he wanted to live in South Beach.
In his 20s.
It's the same, but Trev, what we're talking about, it's the same as the pros. It just is.
Well, Miami is the best team in the country right now, allegedly. Okay, they're top
They might
three.
be, yeah.
And Crystal Ball has taken all that juice that he learned, from Oregon, and they're down there and they're running shop. All right, I keep saying that UCLA job's attractive. I think Coach Witt should take it. I know Kalani takes it, that's fine. But if they have a good season this year, if I was Coach, I'd take that job, dude.
If you were Kyle, you'd leave Utah and go take UCLA.
I mean, come on, man. If you have a nice season this year, we get in this playoff, right? I'd be taking that LA job, and I'd say, Morgan, I'll see you on the field. And the reason why I say that is that's a location, Spence. You and I have been to Westwood.
Mm-hmm.
You know how easy it is to recruit there if you got some money? Who doesn't want to live in Westwood?
I think it's wild. UCLA is an awesome in every sport. I've always said it. You're not wrong.
And so when you start thinking about what is going to happen in college football, let's talk about Utah specifically. We got to decide, are we buyers or sellers?
Mm-hmm.
As an institution, what are we? And that it's about money, Spence. Okay, your family's been involved with pro sports for what, 20, 30 years?
Approaching 40 now.
So 40 years,
yeah.
I would say that rule that you said in the station, you probably learned from working in pro sports.
Correct.
And so that scales to college football now.
It does.
We have to live by that rule. He who has the gold makes the rules. And we need to get some gosh dang gold. And whatever that means, right, we got to get more gold. And that's the issue.
Porter, we came up with, was it beef money? Or we came up with some potential revenue streams that Utah football could tap into. Was it beef money? And then there was some sort of sprout or something that's valuable in Utah that you were referencing?
We did. We talked a little agriculture. Utah State has maybe that a little corner.
Little beef money up in Logan?
They might have the market there.
Was it alfalfa?
Alfalfa's huge in Utah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we can.
I have alfalfa field. There's no money in it. We break even every year. Okay, we use it for the Greenbelt tax. There's no money in it unless you're massively scaling it, and they subsidize farmers. And so
you gotta have those contracts and send it to China.
That's it. We need tech money. Okay, we need tech money right now. Tech is running the world. The stock prices. They have cash. Saudis have cash.
Yeah.
And as we're seeing with BYU, I'm oversimplifying here, but you get the point here. We need that type of money, right?
We do.
Whatever it comes from, we need money that's like ain't no thing money. It's just whatever. Here's $30 million, whatever.
We can't,
$50 million to Stanford today.
Yep.
50.
Yeah, we can't scale and send to China. There are tariffs. China's now getting soybeans from Argentina, so that's not an option, unfortunately.
That's true.
But who is Utah's Cody Campbell, right? Who is Utah's Ryan Smith? Who is Utah's Kansas got a $250 million check. Stanford $50 million today. Who is it?
Well, the Garfs, they really held this thing together for a couple of years. I'll give them credit. The last couple of years, they really held it together. But they got sick of not winning. They say, hey, we're putting out $8 to $10 million, and we're not getting a return on the investment. Now that happens. Okay, so I'm not blaming anybody for that, but we had kind of a thing going there. I think you and I both know we've bled the Eccles family, the Rice family. We've bled some of these families. Huntsman's. Every building there is named after one of these four families. So I guess the answer would be we probably need to stop spending money on facilities, and they should probably stop donating to the Crimson Club. They need to donate to whoever's paying these players. We need to reallocate funds to the salary cap, or whatever we're calling it. The salary pool. That's a solution. Let's cut the funding to the facilities and the red tape machine. Like on the 5th floor, at the Huntsman Center. People who are over there cut their money and give it to the players who win more games. That's a simple equation, dude. Just cut the money. Transfer it. Move it over.
Can we get a portion of the budget to upgrade the concessions at the Huntsman Center? Like, come on, man.
It's only been 30 years in the making, but whatever.
Like hot dog and nachos and maybe a warm Diet Coke.
That's what you get when you go to the Crimson Club. They give you a boiled wiener and some cheese, man.
Can we improve the consumer experience?
But do you know why they're doing that? Because to Chris's credit, they got to keep the money on the field. Okay, we don't have every dollar counts at this point.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is, as a strategy, I take all of it. When I say all of it, I mean about 90% of it, all of it, and slide it over to basketball and football and buy these players.
Yeah. Well, and the other reality is, the days of, and I want your thoughts on this. I think the days of, like Morgan Scalley has been a Utah man since the day he was born.
Yep.
And he talks about how he was always going to be a Ute. He's the ultimate Utah man. He was an unbelievable running back at Highland High, was recruited all over the country, and said, no, I grew up in the backyard. Families, they're all Utes. I'm a Ute. Okay, so I want to be a Ute.
He's a loyal gang member.
But I think those days, Trevor, are probably over. You know, the days of like, I want the BYU experience. And I know the messaging out of Provo has something like, no, A.J. DeBonsa has really embraced Provo and loves the – shut up. You paid him $7 million for 5 months of basketball. So stop this stuff about the culture and the experience. Like the days of wanting the LSU experience, the Utah experience, the Ohio State experience, the BYU experience as a football or a basketball player, they're over.
Yeah.
You have to pay these players, period, end of story. And does it help if, to your point, if you have good coaches? Yes. Does it help if you have a program that has a track record of sending guys to the pros? Yes. All that other stuff helps, but you have to start with the bottom line, and the bottom line is what kind of check can you write?
The Utah Islanders were 5-1. Okay, we just beat Air Force Prep. We didn't have a team 4 months ago or whatever, 4.5 months ago, and we're winning. Now, I'm bringing this up for a reason. We're beating all these teams that have programs, they have broadcast teams, they have coaching staffs. We don't even have headsets some of the games, right? We had 2 coaches on the defensive staff last week. Now, I say that because, to your point earlier, if it's all the money's all the same, the coaching matters. 100%, dude.
Yeah, definitely.
And when you get to the NFL, coaching matters a little bit, but you better believe the best players win in the NFL.
Yeah.
And as I'm coming to a point here, what happened with the Islanders is we can match up better against these small teams. We got a bunch of guys from Salt Lake City. We got ponies. We're out manning people because it's a matchup situation for us. We're not out scheming people. We're just bullying people.
Mm-hmm.
Scale it forward now to Utah. Utah bullied people for years. The last 6 years, we've, with the exception of 2, we've been thrashing people. Well, now people are catching up, right? Because fewer teams are. I would say there's only a few great teams now. There used to be a lot of good teams, man, but now it's kind of consolidating. You get what I'm saying? It's consolidating down. The talent is getting into smaller pools now. People are following the money, Spence. And when you see that happening, you have to decide as an organization, are we going, I'm going to say it again, are we buying or selling? Because at the end of the day, all this stuff about this and that, it's a matchup league now. You said pro sports. The biggest difference between the NBA and college and NFL and NCAA is matchups. You're not running the motion offense in the NBA. You're running pick and roll. In the NFL, you're throwing fade balls. You're throwing bombs, dude. You're running ISO and throwing bombs because we're gonna outmatch up you. So as an organization, that has to be a new thing. I think Kyle's doing it. That's why you're seeing guys playing both ways. He's like, dude, we got to get our best players on the field.
Yeah.
And that's why I bring up depth. We shouldn't have to have 4 or 5 guys playing both ways. I like it, but at our level and where we've been, it shouldn't be an issue. Who do you blame? I blame the money. We don't have the money to provide the depth. We're spending a lot of money on guys who don't touch the ball because that's what we got. Linemen. Then you get into a situation where you got to score, Spence. What happens? It's tough, man.
Mm-hmm.
We need to bridge the gap. So money. Well, OJ's, right? Money.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but it's evil to even hear myself say that, but that's what the game is now. It's in the NFL, that's what it is, and that's what we are.
Well, it sounds evil based off of how we've all been conditioned to view the sport. Because what the NCAA did is they paid lobbyists a ton of money to put terms in our head that we started to believe, like the term amateurism. It is a farce. It was created for the NCAA to avoid paying labor tax. But then in all of our minds, we're like, oh, yes, these are amateurs. They're playing for the purity of the sport. When the powerful legislators that run the sport are making millions of dollars behind closed doors, and we're all talking like we're idiots because that's how we've been taught to talk and cover the sport. Now, this is no longer a business that can build a business on the backs of employees they can't pay, which is a good thing, period. But the failure of NCAA leadership, as I've said if I've said it once, I've said it a million times. Ed O'Bannon filed his lawsuit in 2008. Wow. You had a 16-year runway, dude, to prepare for this. We all saw it coming. We all saw it. I remember the day that lawsuit was filed, and I read it. I was like, this is the beginning. This is the beginning. I had been in media for like 3 years. I'm like, this is the beginning of athletes waking up.
Yep.
And realizing for years and years, and it started with Ed O'Bannon sitting on a couch playing a video game with his friends and said, You're playing with UCLA. Your best player is number 31. Man, he looks a lot like me. How much did you pay for this game? And then whatever it was in 2008, $39.99 or whatever, Ed O'Bannon said, okay, I should see some of that money.
Yep.
Filed his lawsuit, and then, Trevor, he won the lawsuit. And anybody that was paying attention said, you better prepare for the onslaught that's going to come. Now, I didn't think it would take 14, 15 years, but it did. And because of the inaction of the leaders in college sports, the Mark Emmerts of the world and the NCAA leadership, because they sat on their damn hands, we are still dealing with the collateral damage of not being prepared for what the reality is now. Yep. And now we're reeling, trying to put toothpaste back into a tube, and it's just tough to do. It's hard to do that.
I just have always said this. Gym teachers and lawyers are running this thing, okay? And not active lawyers. These are lawyers who went to law school, but they chose to do other things, and these are gym teachers. At the end of the day, coaches are what, Spence? They teach gym. And so when you're asking all these people who are not really businessmen, these are I wouldn't call them philanthropists. These are civic workers, okay? The first until 2008 or 07, most of the coaches, besides the head coach and most of the staff members and athletic, these are not people making a lot of money. Spence, would you agree with that? What was the head football coach making in 2000? Maybe 400,000 here, 300,000,
something along those lines.
You see how fast the scale is now. I mean,
yeah.
I got guys making $10 million a year, and to your point, they left the players behind, and now the players are leaving the coaches behind. There's reports of coaches putting their own salaries into an NIL pool.
Really?
Yes.
Huh.
And you start thinking about how crazy that sounds, man. They're paying these coaches Yeah, I'll throw $4 million in.
Yeah. Well, they're probably doing it because they realize if they don't win, they won't keep their job. Right?
That's it. That's the biggest issue. How are we going to recruit players when we ain't got no money? It's a simple equation. Whoever has the gold makes the rules.
So this is an imperfect exercise, but because data isn't necessarily readily available, well, we'll do our best here. And then we will catch a break. We have misbehaved with the clock. Matt Brown, who we had on last hour, is the editor of Extra Points, a college football newsletter that does a really good job of making the convoluted language in the modern day of college football digestible for folks that don't have a law degree, right? He does a good job with that. The 2024 operating budgets in college football. Now, the reason this is not a perfect exercise or a parallel is this is not what you pay for players, but this is what your budget is to operate. So what you pay your coaches, your administrators, what you spend on facilities. Bama is 1, A&M 2, Ohio State 3, Michigan 4, Georgia 5, Texas 6. You know, and look, Florida State, Auburn, Oklahoma, these are the schools that are on the list as far as what they are willing to spend on their football program. And there's almost a straight line into the AP top 10 or 15 where most of these schools exist. And I would imagine if we actually had data readily available on the highest spenders on rosters, Texas Tech would be on this list, but so would Bama, so would Ohio State, so would Clemson. And look, Clemson hasn't been great this year, so it's not a perfect parallel, but you get the point.
They're doing the opposite, though. That guy's fought NIL and is biting him in the butt.
That's correct. Yeah.
That guy has said from the beginning, I'm not interested in this. We're not doing this at Clemson. How's that working out?
No, he said into a microphone, my Lord and Savior is my transfer portal. It's like, dude, I love Jesus as much as anybody else, but, you know, you gotta pay the players.
That's a little blasphemous to bring him in. The point being, it isn't going to work, okay? It's idealistic. It sounds good. It's a good soundbite. It plays well in some rooms, but when you start talking logic and you start talking humanity, who the hell is going to sign up for that, man?
How many 16-year-old players are going to be like, I want to play for Dabo because he loves God? I mean, respect. I'm not trying to be blasphemous. I'm saying, like,
you're right.
You know, your selling point has to be different than that. Let's see. You know what? Let's catch a break because we have misbehaved with the clock. I just think it's interesting to consider where we're at, the landscape, the failure of people to prepare, and now everybody's trying to pick up the pieces. Final thing, I'll get your thoughts. We'll catch a break. I feel bad for administrators that have to wade their way through this mess and coaches that have to try to figure out. I don't know how you build a program if you do not have cash. That's why every time a college coach is asked to speak at like a chamber of commerce or around town, they all say the same thing. We need your support financially. And what you're asking of donors and boosters now, it's no longer, hey, buy season tickets. It's no longer like, hey, buy our merch. It's no longer join the Crimson Club. It's like, no, we need you to go above and beyond. And if you have the means and you care about a football program, you got to do it if you want your team to keep up.
To your point, I'll give you one story. When I was at Colorado, we even explored meeting with the city council, okay, multiple times, in the Chamber of Commerce, because we, and this isn't a bad idea for Utah. They may have already done this. Think of how much money a home game brings into the city of Salt Lake. I mean, I don't know what the number is, but I'm assuming you bring in 50,000 people or whatever the number we see. You bring in people out of town, and everybody's in town for a whole day. You have a night game. They're spending all day in Salt Lake, dude.
Going to restaurants.
They're going all that stuff.
Yep.
So what does that have to? That's one way. Another thing, I'd like to see this, and we'll catch a break after this. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
I'd like to see crowdfunding. Okay, where if you can put in, you get a return.
Sure.
If you win, if there's a way to set that up, whoever invests in this, if we win a certain amount of games or whatever the bottom line is, you get a piece of that at the end.
Little ROI, huh?
I just think that ownership, there's no barriers to entry. Spence, you've been in ownership groups. There's no barriers to entry here. If you have cash, you can own.
Yep.
And so you should be able to get a return on that.
All right, we'll catch a break. Coming up, I do want to get your thoughts on Utah Arizona State. We should talk some football.
Yeah.
Trevor Riley's live in studio. If you want to tune in on YouTube, our guys got some shades on. One more hit with Trev. We're going to bring in Nick Olachek later. The Mammoth get going tomorrow. We have Stevenson Sylvester. And then we will say goodnight at 6 right here on ESPN 700. The Trevor Riley effect is every time he's in studio, I get a lot of texts, a lot of feedback about what we've discussed. So we just did about 35 minutes on the landscape of college football. All right, Trev. This is a big game coming up on Saturday, so we should discuss it. Let me just start with this. I don't think 2 conference losses kills you entirely, but it might, right? This is a big one Saturday night. It feels like a little more consequential than most weeks.
ESPN did a little prediction thing, like who's going to make the playoff by conference. And I think they had 6 SEC teams making it. And they had 1 Big 12 team. Whoever the champ was, I think they picked Texas
Probably
Tech.
Texas Tech, yeah.
But my theory is that if the Big 12 doesn't cannibalize itself as much as it did last year and the year before, if there's 2 teams with 1 or 2 losses, or maybe Tech's undefeated or somebody is, that should be enough to get in my opinion. If you lose the Big 12 championship game and you have 2 losses, should be good. Now, if you lose the Big 12 championship game and you have 3 losses, Spence, seems a little far-fetched from our conference. With that being said, we're in complete control of our destiny. This week, I think this is the most underrated coach in the country, and I say that because he's not really that not unknown. He just made the playoff last year, but this guy came out of nowhere and took a team who was they were real. You remember how bad those Herm Edwards Arizona State teams were?
And the program was left for dead because they had all of these like sanctions put on them too.
Yeah. And he pulled them out of the depths of hell and put them on the stage with a couple guys from Sacramento State, and that quarterback was from Wake Forest or something. And so I got a lot of respect for this guy. Went up against him on special teams, and their punter went down. I've told this story before. This guy had us guessing whether or not they were going to go for it on 4th down, Spence. And they had us guessing. And so I respect this guy, and we look into this game. Are we going to be able to control the line of scrimmage? We talked about that with Texas Tech. That was an issue. Can we control the line of scrimmage, and can our offense support our defense? Because our defense right now is playing historic, Spence. Even with the loss against Tech, I don't think we've given up more than about 7 or 8 trips into the red zone. I think the whole season, man. It's been an incredible year defensively so far. Got a little banged up here, but we got to control the trenches, and we have to find ways to make plays down the field on offense. I know that sounds like a redundant point, but Spence, how many years have we been watching this team? We've been saying this. Are we going to get the ball down the field? And that's going to be the thing that makes it against a good team, man. You got to make. We talk matchup league, man. You got to make those plays. Do we have the guys to do it? I think we do. I believe in us. I think we're trending upwards.
Have you seen enough? So the difficulty, and this isn't just a Utah thing, and, sometimes I don't love the whole they haven't played anybody. You can only play who's in front of you, and it's not Utah's fault that UCLA, even though UCLA just smoked Penn State, Nico Iamaleava finally looked like the quarterback he did in Tennessee. They were not prepared to play Utah. They looked like and I still don't think they're very good. But the same goes for BYU. It's not BYU's fault that Stanford is in this pivot with Andrew Luck now and Frank Reich, who's a 1-year guy. So sometimes it's not fair to just hone in on the lack of quality opponent. However, Devin's been really good in 4 games. The 4 games Utah's won. The one team that showed up here with a really good defense, and I know that as the story goes, Devin was going through a little bit of an ankle issue. He just didn't look the same. Do you feel like you've seen enough in the 4 performances where he looked really good to believe he can at least do that when the competition improves, namely starting on Saturday?
No. And I say that with all due respect to him and his game, but he did this in the Mountain West last year and the year before. And this is a guy who is playing Mountain West level talented teams, or at least the way they're playing. Wyoming, UCLA,
Cal Poly,
and
West Virginia.
Those are 4 teams that may not win the Mountain West this year.
Yeah,
UNLV probably beat all of them. UNLV did beat UCLA, I think, didn't they?
They did, yeah.
So we played a Mountain West schedule, not because we chose it, just that's how it shook out this year. So, no, I got to see a little bit more against that matchup defense that they're going to see this week. And that coach is going to have something for us. But I believe in this kid. I think that he has poise. I think that he has great pocket presence, great leadership. He doesn't turn the ball over a lot. So I think we're going to trend upwards. I think and I believe that our best days are ahead of us for the season.
You referenced the lack of big chunk plays. I suppose if we wanted to be Utah apologists, we could say they haven't needed them when it comes to the games that they've won because they've smoked the bad teams they've played. And then Texas Tech, really didn't allow for that because their defense is much improved and better. And it's also fair to say that Texas Tech-Utah game was a rock fight for 3.5 quarters before the backup kid came in and really decimated Utah's secondary, which doesn't happen much. But what do you attribute the lack of big chunk plays to most?
Well, we got to get some guys to show up. 18 has got to start showing up, man. 18 got the size, got the speed. I think 81's been moved to receiver. He's contributing a little bit. Jackson Benny went down last week or 2 weeks ago. We got to see more out of 2. I mean, 2 had some great plays the first game of the season, right? I don't know, though, Spence. It's hard to say all this stuff because we haven't played a great team yet besides Tech, and that was a rock fight, and we didn't look too good on offense. I don't attribute that to anything more than just a bad game. But I got to tell you, I got to see more guys making plays down the field. How and why? I mean, I don't know, Spence. You just run straight and you catch the ball usually. That's usually how it goes. The guy covers you and you go down the field and you jump up and you catch the dang ball.
Not all that complicated.
To me, it's not, all right? If you get the matchup, you throw it and it's there and you take it and you catch it. So I don't know whose fault it is, but we got to see a little bit more of catching the ball down the field.
As a guy that made his living tackling people with his face, how do you improve tackling? Because Witt himself has been like, we're missing too many tackles, and that was going to be a point of emphasis this week. How is that coaching? How do you do that? How do you coach up missed tackling?
You got to tackle in practice, and then that's the scale. That's the risk you take, right? What if you lose 2 guys? It's so devastating when you lose a guy in practice. And they're trying something different this year. Coach Witt, I think he came out and said it. We didn't do a whole lot of hitting during camp, right? He said that. We didn't go live very much. Live meaning tackle to the ground. Tackling's one of those things like riding a bike, right? You should be able to get back on, but sometimes it's not that way because you said it. You got to use your face, and it's an attitude. And, I remember it took about 6 months off, and I just got done playing in 2018. We ran out of players in the end of the season to help us practice. So I was an undergrad. Mm-hmm. I padded up. I went out and practiced 3 days a week, okay?
Did you really?
Yeah. Huh. And I got to tell you, I was pretty sore. You forget how much that hurts. And so when you start scaling that, you have guys playing both ways on defense, and they're also not practicing a lot during the week if they're playing both ways in the game. You know that, Spence. Mm-hmm. You can't burn the candle on both ends. So it becomes this weird thing where you got to practice, but you can't practice too much. And then when you do practice, do you really want to spend the time tackling? You want to risk losing a guy who goes both ways? And so it's hard, man. I would say at the end of the day, you just have to get better at it. You have to just watch tape, and they have these donuts you can tackle on bags and stuff. But it's hard, man. We need more depth. If we had more depth, I think we would tackle more.
That's actually what I wanted to ask you. Do you think – because, look, if you believe that Utah football does not have enough depth, I guarantee the coaches feel that way. They're not going to say it out loud. They're not going to come on my show and say that out loud. But if Trevor Riley believes Utah football doesn't have depth, then I'm sure Kyle Whittingham believes that too. Do you think lack of live physical practice is Coach Witt acknowledging, like, we're thin, we cannot lose guys, we have to keep them healthy?
Well, I know we're thin because we got 4 guys going both ways. I can see it on the field, all right? We got guys who are bona fide, probably NFL players. They're going both ways, and I don't blame anybody. You can't blame anybody. We just don't have the players right now because they leave or you can't afford them. I would say this, though, that quarterback's got to put a lot on his shoulders now. You talked about him. When you have issues like that, one guy can win you football games. That's why people love football. One guy can go out there and have a great week, and you can. If quarterback's having a good week, you got a great shot to win, Spence. And conversely, when he's not playing well or he's playing average, you usually lose.
Yeah.
Not very often do you win when your quarterback doesn't play well.
For sure. I mean, I think in the past, Utah football has been able to do that here or there with maybe lack of top-tier play at that position. But, we saw the collateral damage when Cameron went down and what that looked like when they had to play, 4 quarterbacks. Even my guy, the Ferrari, Luke Batari, our guy even got in. Last thing here, Trav, then I'll set you loose. Thanks for the time, as always, today. The UCLA job is open. The Stanford job is open. I think there's a chance Florida opens with Billy Napier, although he may have saved his job last week. Penn State might move on from James Franklin. I don't think Texas is getting rid of Sark, but if they just continue to go in the wrong, there will be 5 or 6 massive college football coaching jobs open this offseason. That's my guess. At what point does Morgan go, when is my time?
I'd do it now.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's me. It's teach them. Morgan has his own plan, has his own thing, and
Yeah.
I'm not going to judge him for anything.
And the ultimate Utah man, as we've talked about.
No doubt. But I got to tell you this right now: if there's a job in L.A., okay, or a job in Jacksonville, Florida, or Happy Valley, they got money, man,
Mm-hmm.
and they got some money now. I mean, they played their quarterback big time at UCLA, and it sounds like they're getting a little organized over there. They're sick of getting pushed around. I'd leave now, dude. Either one of those coaches. I said Coach Witt. I'd leave on a high note. Go make the playoff this year, then go out of town, dude, and go take another job. Not because we want to run him out here. I just that's what I would do. I would.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, coach is in waiting. No problem. Here, you can have this, Morgan. Here, take this. I'm gonna go take this bigger bag over here in LA, and then I'm gonna whoop you. And so I'd like to see that one of those two guys, or Swan, or maybe the OC. I've heard the OC's up for if we keep doing well. He quarterback coaches who win and. Those guys are valuable, man. They're all over the NFL. Look, I mean, they're winning. I'd leave now, though, to answer your question. I'd leave right now when the season's over. I'd get out of town. One of those three guys should be getting out of town and taking one of them jobs. Wouldn't you?
Yeah,
Come on, man. You run your own show in L.A. Are you kidding me?
Look, man, I think you know me well enough to know that I would do the same thing that you're alluding to. It's an interesting thing to consider, though. It just feels like Kyle is comfortable here, loves it here. Morgan, comfortable here, loves it here.
Hey, Salt Lake Country Club's nice, but I like Riviera.
Hey,
just saying, dude. Okay,
No.
Riviera in December, January, I'm cool with that.
You know this. I come from a line where my father said, okay, I've done the thing in Salt Lake, and I want to go see if I can do the thing in New York.
Yep.
And he did the thing in New York, right? Which changed the scope of all of our lives, and it changed the scope of his career. He took a risk, and it paid off for him. Now, the problem with taking a risk is it can go the other way, right? And coaches are hired to be fired, and Kyle has tremendous security here. He has probably earned the right to coach until he decides he doesn't want to, and that sort of security does not exist anywhere else. So, yes, if I put my mindset, body, and approach into Kyle Whittingham's body, then yes, I would go, but I'm not him, right? So I'm just wondering if that's something he would ever even consider.
I just believe in the Kyle Whittingham way. Okay, he trained me, and he trained a lot of us.
Yep.
And I think he gets this thing. I think he understands what it takes. His dad was an NFL coach. Everybody forget, this guy grew up in an NFL locker room.
Yeah.
His dad was an NFL coach for the Raiders and the Rams. He played in the league. He understands what's going on. I'm going to say it again. We need more gold. We need more gold, man.
Yes, we do.
If we get some more gold, right, everything's good. Last thing I'll say about Coach Witt, he should take that job. 100%.
All right, man. Well, look, like I said, I cannot disagree, but neither of us are Kyle, so we'll see how it plays out. Great to see you. You're going to be at the game doing some radio, right?
I'll be with Porter on Saturday doing pregame.
I'm going to roll up, so I'll see you there.
Absolutely, man.
Trevor Riley, the legend himself. My phone is blowing up, but luckily it's nobody from the athletic department, so for now we're safe. All right, before we catch a break, look, bottom line is I'm in the best shape I've been in since I was like 20 years old, okay? So if you are looking to do that and you're aging, you're in your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, 60s, whatever it is, and you've tried to get back in shape and it really hasn't worked, I feel you. Because about 2 years ago I said, okay, getting a little bit older, had a couple of injuries take place, had to have knee surgery, I had subluxed a rib, and I'm like, this sucks. Getting older sucks. And my physical therapist was like, well, you got to get back in shape. You got to start lifting again. And, you know, you've got to do what you did when you were younger, but you just have to do it longer because that's how it works when you get older. So for 3 months, I hit it really hard. I was going to the gym, cleaned up some habits, was eating clean, protein shakes, the whole thing. And I wasn't seeing results. And I'm like, what is going on? Like when you're young, 2 to 3 months, you hit it hard, you're ripped, you're back in shape. Well, I got a hold of our guys at Game Day Men's Health, and what they helped me with was what the bros call biohacking now. It's namely testosterone therapy. I use their peptides. If you're looking to lose belly fat, you know, they do have the weight loss stuff, the tirzepatide, the semaglutide, all that stuff. And after I started supplementing testosterone and utilizing their peptides, it took me 3 more months to get into the best shape of my life. So 3 months without it, not a lot of progress. 3 months with it, boom, I was back. Now, they're a client on the show, so here's what they're doing, and you should really take advantage of it. Number one, they're giving you a free consultation. What does that mean? You go into Game Day Men's Health, they take a little bit of blood, they go over your blood work with you, and then they give you options of how they can help if your libido is low. I can promise you this will fix that, and I'll leave that there. Okay? The other thing they do is they follow up blood work every single month to track your progress. So that is free. And then they're knocking 50% off of their first-year membership. All of this stuff once upon a time was saved for like rich people, celebrities, athletes, and now it is available for you. Go to GameDayMen'sHealth.com, and if you mention you heard me talking about it, you'll get that 50% off, and you will get a free consultation with our good friends at GameDayMen'sHealth.com. Cold as ice because hockey. Is that why? Is that you're playing this as a bum because we're going to talk hockey?
Maybe. I'm going to make you do the corny part.
All right. All right. Okay, fair enough.
Put the onus on you.
Well, it is hockey season. Pro hockey is back, and the Utah Mammoth are back. Good to have our next guest on. We'll do some big picture stuff, and we'll kind of get you ready for the beginning of the season. Good to have Nick Olachek back on the show on a Wednesday. Nick, happy Wednesday, buddy. How you doing?
Spence, great to be with you. It's an exciting day on the eve of the National Hockey League season getting going for the newly named Utah Mammoth. My Chicago Cubs are fighting to stay alive in the Major League Baseball playoffs, so a lot to be excited for this time of the year.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And Nick, it's interesting, as I've been digging in to prepare for the start of this season, it feels like most quote-unquote experts believe that this is a playoff team this year. Vegas, as far as the odds go, have the Utah Mammoth qualifying for the postseason. What gives you the most confidence? The Coach Torney and Bill Armstrong have done what they needed to do this offseason to take that proverbial next step and make this a playoff club.
Well, I think the one move that exemplifies that this team is now in the process of being ready to win is in order to get a great player like a J.J. Peterka, who at just 23 years of age last year was 2 points shy of 70 in his season in Buffalo, is that you got to give up really good players to get someone that's great. They had to give up Michael Kessering, who is a big body, right-handed puck-moving defenseman, a hot commodity around the National Hockey League, and give up Josh Doan, who's going to be a great depth player in this league for a long time to come. So I felt like that was you could make a case that was the biggest move in the offseason that any team made in the National Hockey League. So I think you get in a guy who's going to be able to grow with the rest of the core, the 20 and 21-year-olds, the likes of Dylan Gunther and Logan Cooley. And also you go out and you sign a guy like Nate Schmidt, who brings not only a Stanley Cup pedigree, having won with the Florida Panthers last year, but a guy that's played over 740 games in his National Hockey League career, and a guy that knows what it takes to win. You also go out and you bring in a guy like Brandon Tanev, who is going to be a tremendous penalty killer, a great vibe in the dressing room, and is going to bring an unending amount of energy, not just in Game 1, but in Game 56 and hopefully beyond Game 82 by the end of the season. So I just think when you look at where this team is at, and why are people picking them to make the playoffs? Why is that the expectation? Because if we remember, the expectation going into last season was let's play competitive games and let's be right there, towards the end of the season in April, and that's exactly what happened, where Utah missed the playoffs by 7 points. But you go out, you bring in some veterans, you make a big splash to bring in a young stud. That to me shows that this team is ready to take that next step. They're through the rebuild. No more are the days of let's just acquire draft picks and let's trade away our best players to try and get young studs to build our farm squad. We're now trying to win, and so I think that's the mentality and the perspective of the Utah Mammoth right now. And I think when you look at the additions of new guys, but also the guys that have been here, the steps that they're looking to take, I think that those are all the ingredients of where this team is at right now, and they're looking to make the playoffs. There's no doubt that is the expectation.
I have been wildly impressed with Bill, both just listening to him, and then I've interviewed him maybe 4 or 5 times. You referenced the rebuild, and I always bring this anecdote up because I still think it was hilarious. For the kind of the welcome to our market press conference that we had at the Delta Center when the players were riling up the crowd and Spicy Tuna was doing his thing and everybody was chanting. When it was Bill's turn to talk, he said, "Hey, everyone knows we're rebuilding, right?" Like it was a reminder of like, "Hey, I know we're all excited, but we're in the middle of a rebuild." Nick, take me through, give us a little bit of a history lesson about how you've kind of seen Bill build this thing up, when the rebuild started, and to your point, now it feels like we're going to see the fruits of his labor this season.
Well, the reality, Spence, is that a rebuild in any sport, but especially the game of hockey, you're probably looking at 7 to 10 years before you're a consistent playoff team into a Stanley Cup contender. And look, where this organization was in Arizona, there were some very lean years. But as we've seen, teams that have success, when they look in the rearview mirror, there were some very thin and some very lean years where there weren't a lot of wins, and you were trying to win games and play 5-card stud with 3 cards because you just weren't playing with a lot of experienced guys, or you couldn't attract free agents of the most valuable kind of guys to your team, in those days. And in those lean years when the team wasn't finishing very high in the standings, when you finish low, you get a high draft pick. And over the years, they've been able to accumulate the likes of Clayton Keller, Logan Cooley, Dylan Gunther via a trade. You traded at that time Oliver Ekman-Larsson, who was a really good defenseman and still is, out of Arizona to Vancouver. You get a draft pick, and that draft pick turns into Dylan Gunther, who is going to be a guy that I think can be a perennial 35 to 40 goal scorer every year in his young but long and bright future ahead of him. So I think we could get into the weeds and we could be talking about how everything came to be for an hour. But those lean years, I think, are very much in the past. And when you come to a new market like Salt Lake City, like Utah, where people are excited, where people want to come to the games, there's consistent sellouts. Now, with the renovations to Delta Center, the brand new practice facility, and really is a living facility, I will say, for those guys, if anybody's been able to see the pictures. Those are becoming destination marks for other players that want to come to Utah via free agency and trade. So the lean years are behind this organization. They're no longer focused on how many high draft picks we can get because they have the young core that are here. And now it's about, okay, how do you get over the hump? How do you supplement those guys, bring in veterans that know what it takes to win to try and get them over the hump? So, yeah, it's been a long road for this organization as a whole, but now that they're in the new market here in the great state of Utah, these guys are ready to win, and it's by the veterans that have experience that they brought in, but also where these younger guys are at on this squad.
So ESPN's prediction model has the Mammoth with a projected point total of 98.3. If we look at the Western Conference, Nick, a year ago, that would put them in 4th place behind only Winnipeg, Dallas, and Colorado, ahead of Minnesota. Is that where, and that's in the Central Division in the West, is that where you think they kind of live this year? Does that sound, generally speaking, about right?
Yeah, I don't think there's any reason why that couldn't be the reality. Look, the reality, too, is that for our great fans and listeners out there that know this, and for some of those newer who may not, the Central Division, the division that the Utah Mammoth are in, is the best in hockey because you've got legitimate Stanley Cup contenders, whether it's Colorado, whether it's Dallas, whether it's the Winnipeg Jets. I mean, there is not another division in hockey where you can say that there are 3 bona fide Stanley Cup contenders. And so it's going to be a battle. But in order to get to the promised land, you want to be the best, you got to go through the best. And that's what this division is in the Central, in the National Hockey League. And there's going to be plenty of great matchups against the Avalanche, against the Winnipeg Jets, against the Dallas Stars. But the reality is, for this team, you got to find a way to win the majority of your home games. I'm a huge believer that if you win the majority of your home games and you split on the road, and you go 500 on the road or a little bit above that, you're going to like where you're at come the end of the season. But as we always know, in all of sports especially, getting off to a great start is so key to setting up your team. Because while you can't make the playoffs early in the season, you could certainly push yourself in a hole where you look up but you don't see much light, where you're going to have to be digging out of that hole just to try and be in a playoff position. So the battle in the Central is going to be immense this year. It's a season opener, I should say, that's taking place tomorrow night at Ball Arena in Denver against the Colorado Avalanche, who are as good of a team as there is in the league. They beat the LA Kings last night in their season opener. So as this season goes on, those divisional games are going to be crucial to make sure that you're getting points, that you're getting wins, that you're taking those series against those teams within your division, because it is going to be a battle, and it is going to be a battle all the way until the end in Game 82.
Do not mean to be redundant here, Nick, because you've kind of touched on this a little bit already, but the way I'll phrase the question is, what in your mind cost them a year ago as far as not making it over the line? Where were the areas? Was it something on the ice? Was it a power play or a power play kill? Was it youth? You already alluded to not winning enough home games. And are you confident that those issues have been addressed this offseason and those holes will be filled and enough to get them across the line?
Yeah, I think goal difference, Spence, is one thing I'm going to be paying close attention to last year. Utah's goal difference in the first period was in the top 10 of the National Hockey League last year. And then when you got to the second and you got to the third period, not in top 10. So I think finding a way to close out games and keep leads, that'll be the one area that has to be improved for this team. When you've got a 1-goal or a 2-goal lead in the third period, you don't completely change the way you play. It's still having the confidence to not be afraid to make plays, to keep the puck moving north, not just flipping it and dumping it out, not trying to overcomplicate things as well. And we saw that in the final home preseason game when the Utah Mammoth took on the San Jose Sharks. And yes, I know it was preseason, and I know the Sharks aren't one of the better teams in the league, but Utah was up 4-1. San Jose came all the way to the battle back to tie it 4-4 after the second period. And then in the third, Utah turned it back up and found a way to win that game 6-4. So I think managing games when you have the lead, and when these guys are another year older, they're another year seasoned, they've got more experience under their belt, that's only going to help them in games where they do have a 1 or a 2-goal lead at the most important junctures of the game, whether it be the last half of the game or late in the third period, because there were just too many times last year where the wheels kind of fell off the bus, and all of a sudden it was a tie game after regulation, or the opposition was able to come all the way back and steal a game either in the third or in overtime. So that will be, to me, an area that Utah's going to want to look at. I think it was very good to see some progress in that area in the final preseason game at home against San Jose. But if you want to win and you're in a winning position late in games, you got to find a way to close it out. And I think the experience that they've gained from the guys that were here last year, as well as some of the new additions, is only going to help this team because I certainly have liked what I've seen in the preseason and in camp so far.
11 teams in the West finished with more than 89 points, and a lot of them have also improved their roster over the course of the offseason. And there also are teams that are in a rebuild as well that probably won't come into play. But the reason I bring that up is, do you feel like there's enough, or do you feel like maybe there's still an addition or two that needs to be made in order for this to be solidified and legitimately a playoff team, or do you feel like there's enough on the roster already?
I do think there's enough, but with that being said, Spence, the season always has a funny way of making you look not so correct when you make proclamations like this, when you say, yeah, we've got everything we need. From a team's perspective, I don't think you can ever have enough veteran defensemen. I don't think you can ever have enough depth up the middle. And Utah was a little bit banged up there towards the end of the preseason with Logan Cooley and Barrett Hayden and Jack McBain, who were all injured at one point. The great news is that it looks like those guys are going to be good to go. They're going to be ready for opening night for the Utah Mammoth next year, tomorrow night, I should say. So that's a very much a positive for them. But as the season goes on, barring injury, and one other thing I should say, aside from those injuries that have happened in the preseason, Utah is going to be starting healthy on the back end. And that was one thing last year that Utah did not have a fully healthy squad until after the Four Nations face-off break, which was the middle of February. So finally they're going to be starting the year, for the most part, healthy, with the one guy still in a no-contact jersey in practice, that being, as you mentioned, the guy that they've affectionately called Spicy Tuna, Liam O'Brien, who still is in that jersey right now, as we saw in practice today. So starting the year healthy is going to be so key. But as the year goes on, can you add another defenseman? Can you add another centerman up the middle whether it be halfway through the year or come the trade deadline. I don't think that's a bad thing. You've got your number one goalie in Karel Vejmelka. Your young guns are another year older, so hopefully they know the grind that it is to play 82 games and how to best take care of their minds and bodies. But also, as I've mentioned it, and I know I've said it a lot, but those additions of some of the older veterans like Schmidt, like Tanev, that's going to help your squad because those guys have been around the block, and it's only going to help the team. So where could they add? Yeah, you'd love to go add another scorer. You'd love to go add another center or a defenseman, but where they're at right now, especially defensively on the back end with the likes of Dmitry Simashev making waves through camp and deservedly making this team, I would put that defensive core up against anybody in the National Hockey League, and just really excited to see how some of these young guys can continue to build off of great years last year, whether that be Logan Cooley's 25 goals or Dylan Guenther, who had 27. I don't think there's any reason why he can't surpass 30 this season.
Last thing, Nick, I'll set you loose on this. Ryan and Ashley Smith find themselves in a precarious spot with our pro basketball team right now, with a long road ahead. But I give them so much credit for being prepared for this challenge of bringing pro hockey to Salt Lake City. And you referenced the new facilities and the new remodel of Delta Center and spending the money that needs to be spent to make this thing feel first class. How far does that go as it pertains to the reputation of this club, and what could it mean for the future as far as players wanting to play here, which is the number one issue we have with our pro basketball team? The best players that we've had here just leave when they have the first opportunity.
Spence, the one thing I know about hockey players and the National Hockey League is that guys talk. And there's a lot of communication that happens between players on different teams because they're friends, because they're former teammates. When there's a place that is not very great to be part of, that spreads just as quickly as the spots that are known as destinations. And there could be a lot of different reasons why your team is a destination, because you've got great facilities, because you've got great management, because you've got great ownership, because the area you live in of the country is great. I feel like this organization has everything going for it. And it starts at the very top with Ryan and Ashley Smith. From day one, they have said that they were going to give the team and the players and the staff every opportunity to be the best version of themselves. And they have done that times 10, whether it be the renovations to Delta Center and allowing, at least for this season, fans who are sitting in the lower bowl to not have a single obstructed seat. And then in the next couple of summers, making sure that those folks that are sitting in the second deck will have very much the same experience. The new menu items, the 7-story parking garage that's going to be ready hopefully in a year or two. So just investing in the fans, investing in the market, and some unbelievable plans that are going to be taking place to try to transform the downtown Salt Lake City area. But from a player perspective, when you go to the practice facility down there at the shops at Southtown, you want to spend the whole day there because they've got a kitchen that looks like the cafeteria at Hogwarts. They've got everything that they could possibly need under the sun, whether it be recovery, nutrition. We mentioned the kitchen, strength training. They've got a 40-yard turf field with weights and everything. So, for these players now, there's really no excuse not to succeed. And these guys have taken that, and they know the responsibility that they have to give back to the city and to give back to everything that Ryan and Ashley Smith have given. And look, some other massively important names along this whole process is Chris Armstrong, the president of hockey operations, has done an incredible job overseeing all of this. Pat Murphy, who's been one of the huge builders on this, and Stan Wilson, who unfortunately a lot of people may not know was a trainer in the National Hockey League for a long, long time, and he has been instrumental in making sure that the process was smooth, getting everything built and making sure that the players had not only everything that they wanted, but that they need in order to make sure that they're operating at the highest level possible. So these guys are in a great spot, and as word continues to grow about this being a destination to play, to live, that's only going to attract even bigger names as the years go on, and to put a bow on it, none of this is possible without the likes of Ryan and Ashley Smith for putting everything in place and allowing the organization to do what it's done.
Well, Nick, top of the fourth at Wrigley, Cubs 4, Brewers 1. So I'll set you loose to watch your Cubbies try to stay alive, man. Hey, thanks for the insight. Great stuff. It's great to have hockey back, and we'd love to have you on soon, okay?
Always a pleasure, Spence. Keep up the great work. And if there's any Cubs fans out here in the West, go Cubbies. Thanks
there you go.
And go Mammoth, too. Tusks up.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Nick Olachek, Emmy Award-winning TV host who's now in our market, does a great job on the Mammoth broadcast. Our local hockey team will start their season with a little bit of a road trip at Colorado tomorrow, at Nashville on Saturday, at Chicago on Monday. The home opener is actually a week from today. Calgary is in town for a 7:30 drop of the puck. Love having hockey back. Of course, we'll have our guy Neil Smith on all season long, and people such as Nick to help us continue to learn about this new sport here in Salt Lake City. We'll catch a break. We're back to college football on the other side. Stevenson Sylvester is our guest. We'll get to the 5 o'clock hour of the show. And then we've got Major League Baseball on the station tonight. So stay tuned for the Phillies and the Dodgers at Dodger Stadium right after we say goodnight at 6 o'clock. All right, we got Major League Baseball playoffs on the station tonight. We will have the Dodgers taking on the Phillies. Right now, the Cubs are up 4-2 on the Brewers. The Yankees get going in just a little bit. Let's talk more college football. I misbehaved on the clock, so I have to apologize to our guy, Sly Stevenson. Sylvester, happy Wednesday, Sly. How we doing?
Hump day. What's up, my man?
Just enjoying the great time of year when a little bit of everything is going on. But, of course, yeah, right? And we are obviously hyper-focused on Saturday night, Sly. Let me start with this. I don't think 2 losses necessarily kills your chances of winning the Big 12, but it might, especially when you have 2 losses to teams that you're probably going to be jockeying with at the end. How big does Saturday night feel to you?
Man, I think it's huge, right? Especially with the statistic that, we only have 1 out of 5, 1 out of 6, we've had 6 home games in this conference, and there's only been 1 win. Actually, we're 0-6. Hold on, we don't have a conference home win. I think there's a lot of things riding on the line, tonight to just see how serious this team is. How are we middle of the pack, or are we top tier as we see, right? There's a lot of things that us as fans have to determine, the players have to determine, right? Like, you could do all the things that you're supposed to in the off season. You could practice hard, you can train hard, but at the end of the day, are you going to say, like, do I really have it? Am I really a top-tier opponent? Do I really have the skill level to be on top of the conference or in that top 25 poll? So as a competitor, you question yourself. So I think there's a lot of things going through the minds of the players, of the fans, and so there's a lot riding on this game. This is a familiar opponent, a ranked opponent, so we should be able to handle ourselves accordingly and come up. So this is a true test to what type of team we are and who we are, as an organization.
From a consumer standpoint, night games at Rice Eccles are awesome. From a player standpoint, what part of the day do you most prefer to play?
Man, night games, 1,000%. I will take a night game over everything. It sucks from the fact that you have to wait all day. As a player, like, we literally we wake up pretty much at 6 because we're on edge anyway. We wake up at 6. We do our morning walk. We eat our breakfast, but we're like, especially for our 8 o'clock kick, we're sitting down all day. This was in the pros. This is in college as well. That's the only part that sucks, but what you love about it is what I'll sacrifice sitting around all day is the atmosphere that you get from a night game, right? From driving to the stadium and seeing everybody tailgating and yelling at our bus if it's an away game, if it's a home game, everybody cheering, seeing everybody wearing Utah merchandise. Hopefully it's Utah man gear. Utah merchandise, heading into the stadium, getting ready, shouting, smiles on people's faces just because they're around the environment. Like, that gets you giddy as a player. And then for us, we do the Ute walk and we slap the fans' hands as we go down into the locker room, letting us know how serious it is. The whole atmosphere of football happens, late at night. You feel everything. The stadium is packed from the jump. From the get-go in the first quarter on a night game, the stadium is packed. And I absolutely love that feeling. The lights, as a player, the light shining down on the field is way different than the sunlight shining on the players. I'm getting all jacked up because you're bringing back memories now. But playing at night, whether for me, I played on Monday Night Football when we played in the arena in New Orleans, or we would go down to Dallas, or whatever we played in arena. It's still different vibe. But night games, Monday night, Sunday night games against like the Ravens or the Bears or something was just it was absolutely epic. And so I'll take a night game over a day game any day. Sorry for the long response.
No, not at all. I love it. And I you're getting me hyped just to be at the game on Saturday night, because even Coach Witt during his media on Monday talked about how excited he is for this atmosphere coming up on Saturday night. So if we look at Arizona State, Sly, here's what I wanted to ask you, because they have this Jordan Tyson kid is insanely talented. He has 39 catches on the year, 483 yards. He's the leading receiver in the conference. But Sam Leavitt has not been able to settle on even like a second preferred target. They've got a tight end, the Shannon Mateo kid with 17 catches. Raleek Brown catches 19 out of the backfield. But it feels like when I watch them and then you look at the data, it's tunnel vision from Sam to Jordan. So how do you, if it really is a one kind of tiered attack on the outside, schematically, how do you take that away? Because it feels like that's going to be one of the keys here.
Man, it's not going to be easy because most of the time that is schemed. Now, I have to watch a little bit more film on exactly how they line him up. But when you got a guy like Jamar Chase, or you have a guy that's as dynamic as like a Ryan Smith at Ohio State, or that guy, the receiver for Alabama, those guys, it's very hard to stop. But what you want to do is limit, right? We've played number one receivers, even TCU last year with Jack Besh, right? We played these guys, and what we do is they're going to catch the football because they make incredible plays. They fit it into tight coverage. There's a comfortability between quarterback to receiver. You get that. But what you want to limit is the tackles after the catch. The same thing when Jordan Addison was at USC, right? And Caleb Williams and him had a spectacular connection. They spread him all across the field. They were doing fly motions to get him into the flats and running him at the third receiver so where he has a two-way go, lining him up at X and having him go one-on-one and catching a short pass and trying to go. The biggest thing is what we've had issues with is tackling, right? We have to tackle the catch, right? Guys like Jackson Benny, Smith Snowden, who will be aligned on Jordan, they're going to need to be able to be attached to him and not try to bait the quarterback. I've said this all season, and I've hated. I think guys are trying to test out their skill set, so it was early in the season. But there was a lot of baiting the quarterback, like throw that ball. I want you to throw the flat. I'm going to try to steal it. Let me. You can't do that against top tier opponents. If you got a guy, if that's your guy. So what this defense we play matchup zone. So even though we go cover 2 or cover 3 or whatever, at the end of that we pass it off, and then we have to plaster and match up on those guys. When you plaster and you have the guy that, like when we go our dog coverage when we're having a 6-man blitz, those are man zones, right? So we run the zone and it ends up being man. You have to attach yourself to that guy. Don't bait the quarterback. Just stay on top of your guy. Tackle the catch, because the yak yards are where teams like this get all of their edge. And so I think that we'll be pretty set across the board, especially with the bye week last week. We were able to recover. But yeah, I think if we take that away, or if that's their only sense of success, that plays right into our hands, especially with our ability to rush the passer with our D linemen. Sam Levitt won't be able to hold the ball long enough to have Jordan Addison come open like that.
Before I set you loose, Sly, here's the dynamic I'm most interested in. So Arizona State has a excellent rushing defense. They're actually 8th in the nation. They allow about 78 yards a game. But they do not have a good passing defense. They have some injuries in the secondary. They're 96th in the country with 243 yards allowed. Now, Utah's offensive line will be the best offensive line they've seen. So I'm not saying it's all on Devin, but when you look at where ASU appears to be vulnerable, it feels like Utah's going to have to throw the football. Do you have confidence that the throw game, as Whit likes to say, will be what it needs to be on Saturday night?
Well, I mean, to speak to those statistics, the teams that they've played haven't been rushing teams. Yeah. I think this is going to be the first actual threat to running the football is playing Utah, right? And that's who we are. I'm never going to forget this statement. I say it all the time, and I don't care if everybody gets annoyed about it. But in 2001, we were playing a quarterback for Washington Commanders right now. Yeah, we're playing Jaden Daniels. He's at ASU. They're up by 2 scores. I'm interviewing Coach at halftime, and I'm like, Coach, how do we get out of this big? Like, nothing's really working offensively. Defensively, we're kind of shook a little bit. What happened? He's like, we have to run the football. And he was so adamant and so determined. He was very dogmatic about, like, we have to run the football. And I'm like, Coach, we're down by 2 scores, and it doesn't look like we can do anything. And we come out at halftime, and we run it down their throat. 3 straight possessions, 3 touchdowns, and I don't think we threw the ball but once. And so I'm just like, all right, This man knows what he's talking about. I don't. And so I think we got to still go with our identity, and that's running the football. That's QB run game. That's Wayshawn Parker. That's N'Keary Rogers. I wish we still had Hunter Andrews, but we don't have. But there's tons of guys that we can put in there to make that happen. But we really have to take advantage of our great offensive line, take care of the football, right? Because I think that puts us behind the boat, but take care of the football and run the football effectively. And I think that's going to be the game plan, right? Because you want to keep the ball out of Sam Levitt's hand. The best way to do that is control the clock by running the football. So I think that's going to be paramount for us to be able to do in this football game. There's many ways to run the football. We got to see exactly what game film has told Coach Beck that which scheme is going to work. Is that the straight ahead? Is that the off tackle? Or are we going to have to go outside to come back inside? What type of running game are we going to have to do? Because we can do all of it. We can run outside. We can run inside. We can do QB run game. We can do it all. But what type of run game is Utah going to have to implement to be successful against Arizona State?
Bottom line, Sly, do we get it done? Do we come away with a win?
I don't think you'll ever hear me say we won't. So, yes, we get it done. I think it's going to be a classic matchup, and I think it's going to be a classic head-to-head kind of emotional game because of our history, right? We got history with Arizona State. There was times where it was just a back-and-forth type of matchup, and I just think that Kenny Dillingham is going to want to reestablish that. He's such a tough coach, but I think he's got his guys right where he wants them, and they're willing to play for him. So I just think that this is going to be a top-tier matchup and one that I don't think any Utah fan is going to want to miss.
Fair enough, my friend. Appreciate the time today. Have a great week, and we'll see you up there on Saturday, okay?
You the man. Appreciate it.
Stevenson Sylvester, one of the best to ever do it at the U, and then obviously a Super Bowl winner in the NFL. He'll be part of our coverage Saturday night. Reminder, our pregame show with Porter Larson, Trevor Riley, who joined us earlier, will begin at 4:15. And then Bill Riley, Scott Mitchell, Stevenson Sylvester have the call for you as it's game week for Utah, a big one on Saturday night. All right, week 7 of college football. I'm shaking my head as I say that. Week 6 in the NFL. Bottom line, I hope you have all the games at your disposal. And if you're a sports fan and you don't have Dish, you're just doing it wrong because I tried all the other platforms. Save a grip of money, period, end of story, on Internet Solutions as well at 801-424-DISH. What's going on, Ryan?
Vince, thanks so much. This is such a fun time for us because this promotion is killing it. And the amount of money we save people, it's more than I've ever seen. And listen, you got to take advantage of the offer with Dish. You get the top package free for 3 months. The new customer offer has a discounted rate, which is locked in for 2 years, and it's so much cheaper than all these other providers. Call us up. Save me let me save you some money. I'll throw in the NFL Red Zone. I'll also throw in the multi-sports pack free for 6 months. This will include also Showtime and Paramount Plus for 4 months. It's an easy thing to do right now. Is just call up, save money, and let us upgrade you. The DVR is huge. It auto-records the locals. It auto-hops commercial breaks. It will record your team's games for you. Makes life just so much easier. Plus, all the streaming services are just built in, like channels. So it's super easy to switch back and forth from traditional to streaming services and have everything in the same place. Call us up today. Remember, we got great internet options, too. We can save you a lot of money there, even if you have fiber. If you're spending more than $70 a month, you should just call and see what we can do for you. 424-DISH. It's 801-424-DISH.
All right, 3 hours down, 1 hour to go. The final hour of the program on a Wednesday comes your way next right here on ESPN 700. Bottom of the fifth, Cubs lead the Brewers 4-2. Yankees and Blue Jays about to get going. My guy, Cam Schlittler, be careful saying that name on air. I got this week. We'll take the bump for my Yanks, see if they can get it done tonight. When we say goodnight at 6, it's time for the Phillies and the Dodgers. 5 o'clock hour of the show gets rolling right now. Happy Wednesday to you. You're halfway through that work week. You are one day closer to the weekend, one day closer to football. Beautiful day outside, and as it is every day, it's good to have you along for the ride. Prize Picks, best way to win cash on the Niners, on the Broncos, on the Raiders this football season. All you have to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you could win up to 2,000 times that cash. Prize Picks is the only app that offers stacks, meaning you can pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. If you want to pick more on Josh Allen's passing yards, rushing yards, and touchdowns, now you can pick all of them in the same lineup only on Prize Picks. Follow other Prize Picks players directly on the app. Copy their lineups in one click, whether it's a friend, a celebrity partner, or just someone whose picks you like. You can hit the follow button and check out every lineup they create in the new feed tab on Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups after you play that first $5 lineup. Promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup on Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Big game for the Utes on Saturday. We're going to break it down.